Hi guys, tonight we step into a world long before cities, before written words, before even the quiet hum of thought as you know it. You find yourself standing on a vast open plain under a dim sky, the air cool against your skin, carrying the faint scent of earth and distant rain. Somewhere nearby, a fire crackles softly, its glow flickering against rough stone and shadowed figures. These are your ancestors, though they would not recognize the word. They move, breathe, and survive, but something essential has not yet arrived. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as you settle in, maybe let me know where you are in the world and what time it is for you right now. There is something quietly comforting about knowing we're all listening together, even across distance and time. Now dim the lights and let your eyes adjust to this older, quieter version of existence. You take a slow step forward, your feet pressing into soft soil that has not yet been shaped by roads or footsteps repeated over generations. Around you, early humans move in small groups. Their motions are deliberate but simple. There is no chatter, no storytelling, no laughter as you might expect. Instead, there are sounds that rise and fall like the wind. Low murmurs, sharp calls, the occasional grunt. Communication exists, but only just. To understand this moment, it helps to pause for a second. Tens of thousands of years ago, long before the rise of agriculture or written language, early humans lived as hunter-gatherers. Their lives were shaped by the rhythm of the natural world. Food was not stored in kitchens or markets. It was found, gathered, hunted, or lost. Survival depended on quick reactions and physical endurance rather than long-term planning. You notice one individual crouch near the fire, turning a piece of meat slowly over the flames. The smell drifts toward you, smoky and rich. Fire, interestingly, had already been harnessed by this point. Archaeological evidence suggests that early humans were using controlled fire at least 400,000 years ago, possibly even earlier. It provided warmth, protection, and a way to cook food, making it easier to digest. But as you watch, something becomes clear. They use the fire, but they do not wonder about it. There is no curiosity in their eyes about how it works, no questions about where it comes from. It is simply there, useful, necessary, but not mysterious. And you might find that a little surprising, because today, even a small flame can make you pause. You might stare into a candle and drift into thought. But here, thought has not yet stretched that far. Nearby, a child sits close to an older figure, watching their hands carefully. The older one cracks open something small, perhaps a nut or bone, revealing what is inside. The child imitates the motion, a bit clumsily. This is learning in its earliest form, not taught with words, but copied through observation. Some historians suggest that imitation was one of the first stepping stones toward more complex thinking. Others argue that it remained purely instinctive for a long time, driven more by necessity than by awareness. The debate continues quietly among researchers, much like the soft wind moving through the grass around you. You move a little closer to the group, careful not to disturb the scene. The ground is uneven, dotted with small stones and patches of dry grass. In the distance, you hear the faint call of an animal. Perhaps a bird, perhaps something larger. The group reacts instantly, heads turn, bodies stiffen. There is no discussion, no exchange of ideas, just immediate attention and readiness. This is a world ruled by the present moment. There is no past to reflect on, no future to plan for, only now. And that might feel strange to you because your own mind rarely stays still. Even as you listen, you might be thinking about tomorrow or remembering something from earlier today. But here, those layers of time have not yet formed in the same way. You notice how their eyes move, always scanning, always alert. There is intelligence here, certainly. These are not simple beings. Their brains are already large compared to many other species. But intelligence does not yet mean self-awareness. It does not mean reflection. It is more like a sharp tool that has not yet been turned inward. The fire pops softly, sending a brief spray of sparks into the air. One lands near your feet, glowing faintly before fading. The warmth reaches you in gentle waves. You can almost feel the comfort it provides, especially as the temperature begins to drop with the setting sun. Interestingly, cooking food over fire had a significant impact on human evolution. By making food easier to chew and digest, it allowed early humans to extract more energy, which some researchers believe contributed to the growth of the human brain. Though scholars remain divided on exactly how large this impact was, the connection between diet and brain development is widely accepted. So, in a quiet way, the simple fire is already part of a much larger story. You sit down on a nearby rock, letting the scene settle around you. The sky above is deepening into shades of blue and grey. There are no artificial lights here, no distant glow from cities, just the slow appearance of stars, one by one, like tiny points of calm. The group begins to settle as well. Some lie down close to the fire, others remain sitting, their silhouettes outlined by the flickering light. There is no structured bedtime, no shared ritual to mark the end of the day, just a gradual slowing as bodies grow tired and darkness takes over. You might expect conversation at a time like this. Stories, perhaps. But there is none. Not yet. And that absence is important, because the ability to tell stories, to imagine events beyond the present moment, is something that will come later. It will change everything. But for now, the night is quiet in a different way, a deeper way. You listen closely. The crackle of fire, the soft shifting of bodies, the distant sound of wind moving through open land. These are the sounds of a world that has not yet been filled with human meaning. You feel a strange calm here, a simplicity that is almost unfamiliar. There is no pressure to think, no need to plan, just existence, moment by moment. But somewhere beneath that calm, something is beginning. Not visible, not obvious, a subtle shift, slowly building over generations. Researchers continue to question exactly when this transformation began. Some place it around 70,000 years ago, during what is often called the cognitive revolution. Others suggest it was a gradual process, unfolding over hundreds of thousands of years. There is no single answer, only clues scattered across time. And as you sit here, watching the fire burn low, you're right at the edge of that mystery. The world is about to change, but for now, it remains quiet, simple, unaware. The night deepens, and the stars above seem to settle into place. You feel the warmth of the fire, the cool air brushing lightly against your skin. The group around you breathes slowly, steadily, in rhythm with the earth itself, and you stay there, just for a moment longer, in this quiet before something entirely new begins. You remain seated near the fading fire, the warmth now softer, more like a memory than a presence. The figures around you sleep or rest in stillness, their breathing slow and steady. Night has fully arrived, wrapping everything in a gentle darkness. Above, the stars stretch endlessly, untouched by any human story or interpretation. As the hours pass, you begin to notice something subtle about this world. Life here is immediate, almost entirely bound to the senses. Every movement, every reaction is tied directly to what can be seen, heard, smelled, or touched in the present moment. There is no wandering of the mind beyond what is necessary. To understand this more clearly, you step into the rhythm of their existence. Morning comes quietly. There's no alarm, no set hour to wake. Instead, the gradual light of dawn begins to seep into the landscape, turning shadows into shapes, one by one. The group stirs, a shift of a shoulder, a slow stretch of limbs. Eyes open not with thought, but with awareness of light and temperature. You rise with them, feeling the coolness of the early air. It carries a faint dampness, perhaps from dew settling overnight. The fire has reduced to glowing embers, and one of the group instinctively kneels beside it, adding small pieces of wood. No discussion, no plan, just action, guided by familiarity. This is a life shaped by instinct. Early humans, especially those living before complex language, relied heavily on instinctual responses. Hunger leads to movement, sound leads to alertness, danger leads to immediate reaction. There is little space for hesitation, and even less for reflection. You follow as the group begins to move away from their resting place. Their pace is steady but alert. Eyes scan the ground and horizon constantly. You notice how they pay attention to details that might escape a modern eye. A slight bend in grass, a faint mark in the soil, the distant movement of something just beyond sight. This is knowledge, but it lives in the body, not in words. One individual pauses suddenly, raising a hand. The others stop instantly. You feel it too, the tension shifting in the air, a sound, faint but distinct. Perhaps an animal moving through brush. No one speaks. Instead, there is a shared stillness, as if all attention has narrowed into a single point. This moment reveals something important. Even without language, there is coordination. There is awareness of others. Some researchers suggest that this kind of shared attention was an early building block for more complex social behavior. Others argue that it may have remained limited for long periods, bound closely to survival rather than expanding into deeper understanding. Either way, you can feel it here. The group slowly adjusts their position, moving with care. Their bodies communicate more than any words could. A shift in posture, a glance, a slight turn of the head. These are signals, subtle but effective. Eventually, Paki. The tension fades. The sound passes. Whatever caused it moving away. The group relaxes slightly, though never completely. That constant alertness never disappears. You continue walking with them, the sun now rising higher, warming the land. The smell of earth becomes stronger as the day progresses. You notice how often they stop, searching for food. Roots are pulled from the ground. Berries are examined carefully before being eaten. Every action is cautious, deliberate. Interestingly, many early human diets were incredibly diverse. Archaeological evidence shows that hunter-gatherers consumed a wide range of plants and animals, adapting to whatever their environment offered. This flexibility was one of their greatest strengths. But there is something else you begin to notice. They do not plan for tomorrow. There is no gathering of extra food beyond what is needed for the moment. No storing, no saving. The idea of future scarcity does not seem to shape their behavior in the same way it would later in human history. You might find yourself wondering about that. Today, you likely think ahead constantly. Meals, schedules, plans, even long-term goals. But here, that kind of thinking has not yet taken hold. Life is lived in a continuous present. A child nearby picks up a small stone, turning it over in their hand. They tap it against another object, testing its hardness. There is a flicker of something there, perhaps curiosity, but it does not linger. The stone is dropped, and attention shifts to something else. Curiosity in its deeper form is still emerging. Scholars continue to question when humans began to think beyond immediate needs, to ask questions about the world rather than simply react to it. Some suggest it was a slow accumulation of small changes. Others believe there may have been key moments where thinking shifted more dramatically. As you walk, The ground beneath your feet changes. Softer soil gives way to rougher terrain. You feel the texture through each step, the unevenness requiring constant adjustment. It keeps you present, just like everything else here. The group eventually finds a shaded area, where they pause to rest. Some sit, others lie down. There is no conversation, but there is a quiet sense of togetherness. Not emotional in the way you might recognize, but functional. Being together increases safety, it improves chances of survival, and yet, something deeper is not quite there. You notice how interactions remain simple. There is no extended gaze into another's eyes, no visible reflection of inner thoughts. Emotions exist, certainly. Fear, comfort, perhaps even a basic form of attachment, but they are not explored. They are felt and then pass through, like wind moving across the land. A small, almost amusing detail catches your attention. One individual seems particularly drawn to a certain type of fruit. They search for it repeatedly, ignoring other options. It is a preference, a small personal inclination. Some anthropologists have noted that even early humans likely had individual tastes and habits. Though these were rarely expressed in ways that shaped group behavior, you smile quietly at the thought. Even here, long before identity takes form, there are hints of individuality. The sun continues its slow path across the sky. Time passes, though no one marks it. No one counts the hours or measures the day. There is only light and dark, hunger and rest. And as the afternoon fades into evening once more, you begin to feel the rhythm settling in, the repetition of actions, the simplicity of needs. But beneath that repetition, something is shifting. Very slowly, almost invisibly, the seeds of something new are being planted, not in the ground, but in the mind. Researchers often refer to this long period as one of gradual cognitive development. There was no sudden switch, no single moment when everything changed. Instead, small adjustments accumulated over thousands of years, slight improvements in memory, subtle increases in attention, tiny sparks of awareness, and you're witnessing the world just before those sparks begin to catch. The group returns to a familiar resting place as evening approaches. The fire is rebuilt with practiced ease. Flames rise once more, casting their warm glow across familiar faces. You sit down again, feeling the gentle heat against your skin. The air cools quickly now, carrying the scent of smoke and distant vegetation. Around you, the same quiet settles in, but it feels different now, because you have begun to notice what is not there. No reflection, no questions, no stories, and perhaps most striking of all, no sense that anything is missing. The night deepens once more, and as you watch the flames dance, you sense that this stillness cannot last forever. Something is coming, not loud or sudden, but transformative in a way that will echo across all of human history. For now, though, you remain here, in a world guided only by instinct. Simple, efficient, and quietly waiting. The fire burns a little brighter tonight, its flames rising in soft, uneven patterns that shift with the breeze. You sit close enough to feel the warmth on your hands, though the air behind you remains cool and still. The group gathers once again, forming a loose circle around the light, their silhouettes steady and familiar now. You begin to notice something curious about this fire. It is used often, relied upon, almost trusted, and yet it is not understood. To step back for a moment, fire was one of the earliest and most important tools humans ever controlled. Evidence from sites like Wonderwork Cave in South Africa suggests that Homo erectus may have been using fire nearly 1 million years ago. It provided warmth in colder climates, protection from predators, and a way to cook food, which made nutrients easier to absorb. But here, as you watch, there is no sense of wonder about it. One individual carefully places a piece of wood into the flames. Another adjusts a burning branch, moving it slightly closer to the center. These actions are practiced, almost automatic. They know what works, even if they do not know why. You might think about how you would react to fire, even now. A simple flame can draw your attention. You might stare into it, letting your thoughts wander. You might ask yourself where it came from, how it spreads, why it behaves the way it does. But here there is no questioning. Fire is part of the environment, just like the wind or the ground beneath your feet, and that difference matters more than it first appears. You lean forward slightly, watching the way the light flickers across the faces around you. It softens their features, creating movement where there is none. Shadows stretch and contract along the ground, dancing quietly at the edge of perception. A child reaches toward the fire, drawn by its warmth and glow. Instantly, an older individual pulls their hand back. The motion is quick, almost reflexive. There is no explanation, no warning spoken aloud, just action. The child does not protest. They simply withdraw, adjusting their behavior without needing to understand the reason. This is learning again, but still without language. Some historians suggest that early humans developed a kind of practical intelligence, where knowledge was passed through observation and repetition rather than explanation. Others argue that this limited the spread of more complex ideas, keeping understanding tied closely to direct experience. As you watch, it becomes clear how this might be true. Without words, there is no way to describe the nature of fire, no way to explain that it burns because of heat and fuel, no way to pass on abstract ideas, only experience. You notice how carefully the group maintains the flames. Fire is not easily created from nothing, at least not here. It must be preserved, carried, protected. If it goes out, it could take time and effort to bring it back. This creates a quiet sense of responsibility, even if it is not spoken. Interestingly, some archaeological evidence suggests that early humans may have transported embers over long distances, keeping fire alive as they moved from place to place. This would have required a level of planning, though perhaps not conscious in the way you would think of it today. You shift slightly, feeling the rough surface of the ground beneath you. Small stones press against your palm, their texture grounding you in this moment. The air smells strongly of smoke now, mixed with something earthy and faintly sweet from nearby plants. One individual sits slightly apart from the others, staring into the fire. Their gaze lingers longer than the rest. It is subtle, but noticeable. You wonder, just for a moment, if something different is happening there. Could this be the beginning of reflection, or is it simply rest? Scholars remain divided on when humans first began to think in abstract ways, to reflect on their surroundings rather than simply react to them. Some suggest it may have started with moments like this. Others believe such interpretations risk projecting modern thinking onto ancient minds. It is a quiet debate, much like everything else here. You listen closely to the sounds around you, the crackling of burning wood, the occasional shift of someone adjusting their position, the distant call of an animal somewhere beyond the reach of the firelight. There is comfort in this circle, even without words. Fire has brought them together, not intentionally, perhaps, but consistently, and that alone begins to shape behavior. You notice how the group stays closer at night than during the day. The fire acts as a center point, a place of gathering. It creates a boundary between light and dark, safety and uncertainty. Over time, this repeated gathering may have played a role in strengthening social bonds. Some researchers suggest that firelight extended the day, allowing more time for interaction. Others propose that it created the conditions for early forms of communication to develop. It is interesting to imagine that something as simple as sitting around a fire could eventually lead to storytelling, language, and culture. But for now, those possibilities remain distant. You watch as someone places a piece of food near the edge of the flames, turning it slowly. The smell grows richer, more inviting. Cooking has changed not just diet, but behavior. it encourages patience. Waiting for food to be ready is different from eating immediately. It introduces a small delay between need and satisfaction, and that delay, though simple, may have been important. It creates space for something to begin forming. You feel the warmth on your face, steady and calming. The firelight flickers gently in your vision, and for a moment, everything feels still, almost suspended. But then, a sudden spark leaps upward, catching your attention. Your eyes follow it instinctively, watching as it fades into the dark above. That moment of attention, brief as it is, feels different. You begin to realize that attention itself is changing, not just reacting, but lingering, holding, focusing. This might be one of the earlier signs of the shift to come. The ability to hold attention on something beyond immediate need, to look at the fire not just for warmth, but for the experience of looking. It is subtle, almost invisible, but it is there. The group begins to settle once more, bodies lowering closer to the ground. Some lie down, curling slightly to preserve warmth. Others remain sitting, their forms still outlined by the fading light. You stay where you are, watching the fire burn lower. The flames shrink, becoming smaller, quieter. The crackling softens into occasional pops. The glow deepens into a steady red. Round you, breathing slows. The night grows heavier, and in that quiet, you sense something building beneath the surface. Not yet visible, not yet understood, but growing, like a small ember hidden beneath ash, waiting for the right moment to catch. You close your eyes for a moment, listening to the rhythm of this ancient world. And when you open them again, the fire is still there, unquestioned, unexplained, but quietly shaping everything around it. The night fades slowly, almost gently, as if the world itself is reluctant to move forward. You wake not to a sound, but to a change in light. A soft grey glow spreads across the horizon, touching the edges of the land and the still forms around you. The fire has nearly disappeared, leaving only faint warmth in the ground beneath your hand. As the group begins to stir, you notice something slightly different today. It is not obvious at first, nothing dramatic shifts. There is no sudden change in behaviour, and yet there is a subtle hesitation in the way one individual moves. A pause that lingers just a fraction longer than before. You stand, brushing the dust from your hands, and follow as the group begins their familiar routine. The morning air is cool, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and distant vegetation. Feet press into the ground with soft, steady sounds as everyone moves outward, scanning for food, for movement, for anything that might matter. But your attention keeps returning to that one figure. They stop near a cluster of aloe plants, crouching as others do. Their fingers hover above the leaves, not touching immediately. There is a moment, brief but distinct, where they seem to be considering, not reacting, considering. It passes quickly. The leaves are gathered, the action completed, but you felt it, and that feeling lingers. To understand why this moment matters, it helps to step back for a second. Over long stretches of human evolution, small cognitive changes began to appear. These were not sudden transformations, but gradual adjustments in how attention, memory, and perception worked together. Research indicates that increased brain connectivity, particularly in areas related to planning and awareness, may have allowed early humans to hold thoughts for slightly longer periods. This made it possible to compare options, even in a simple way. And here, in this quiet moment, you may be witnessing one of those early shifts. The group continues moving, spreading out slightly as they search. The rhythm is familiar now. Step, scan, pause, step, scan, listen. But now you begin to notice more pauses. Not many, not consistent, but present. A child stops to look at something on the ground. Not just glance, but look. Their head tilts slightly, as if trying to understand what they are seeing. It is a small object. perhaps a stone with an unusual shape. They turn it in their hand, longer than necessary. Then, as before, they drop it. Still, that extra moment remains. Some researchers suggest that curiosity may have emerged in these small, fleeting instances, not as a constant trait, but as brief sparks that appeared under the right conditions. Others caution that interpreting these behaviours as curiosity may reflect modern bias, projecting intention where there may have been none. Either way, something is different. You feel it in the pacing of the day. The group reaches a narrow stretch of land where the ground dips slightly. Water collects here, forming a shallow pool. Several individuals kneel to drink, their reflections shimmering faintly on the surface. You kneel beside them, noticing the coolness of the water as it touches your fingers. It ripples outward, distorting the shapes within it. One individual lingers after drinking, staring into the water. Their reflection stares back. There is no recognition, not yet. No awareness of self in the way you understand it. But the gaze lasts longer than expected. Their hand moves through the surface, breaking the image, then pulling back again. It is almost as if they are noticing the difference between stillness and change. That might not sound like much, but it is the beginning of something. Awareness, in its earliest form, does not arrive all at once. It builds through tiny observations. The difference between before and after, between one action and another, this is the foundation of thought. You rise again as the group moves on, the sun now higher in the sky. Its warmth spreads across your shoulders, easing the coolness of the morning. The air feels thicker now, carrying more scent, more life. You pass through an area where the ground is scattered with broken stones. Some are sharp, their edges shaped in ways that seem intentional. Archaeological findings show that early humans were crafting stone tools for hundreds of thousands of years. These tools were not random. They were shaped with purpose, designed for cutting, scraping, and breaking. You pick one up, feeling its weight and texture. It fits into your hand with surprising balance. This is not just instinct. There is a hint of planning here. The understanding that shaping one object can affect how it interacts with another. Some interpretations suggest that toolmaking required a mental image of the desired result. Others argue that it may have been learned through repeated imitation, without the need for abstract thought. As you turn the stone in your hand, you can almost sense both possibilities existing at once. Nearby, two individuals work with similar tools, striking one stone against another. The sound is sharp and rhythmic, echoing lightly through the air. Small fragments break away, falling to the ground. There is focus in their movements, not just action, Reen, but repetition, and perhaps, slowly, refinement. You place the tool back where you found it and continue walking, your thoughts settling into a quiet rhythm. The world around you feels the same as before, and yet it no longer feels entirely unchanged. There are moments now, small, quiet moments where attention lingers just a little longer, where action pauses before continuing, where something like curiosity flickers into existence, then fades again. The group begins to gather once more as the day moves toward evening. The sun lowers, casting long shadows across the land. The air cools gradually, carrying that familiar shift toward night. The fire is rebuilt again, its flames rising with practiced ease. You sit beside it just as you have before. But now, as you watch the light move and shift, you notice something new within yourself as well. You are watching more closely, not just seeing but observing. And you begin to wonder if that same shift, however small, is beginning to take hold in those around you. Experts have not reached a consensus on how quickly these changes occurred. Some believe the process was so gradual that it would have been invisible within a single lifetime. Others propose that environmental pressures may have accelerated certain developments, encouraging new ways of thinking. As the fire crackles softly, you glance around the circle, faces lit by warm light, eyes reflecting movement, and in one or two of those gazes, you think you see it again. That brief pause, that quiet flicker, the beginning of something that does not yet have a name. The night settles in slowly, wrapping the group in darkness and warmth. And as you sit there, listening to the steady rhythm of breath and flame, you realize that the world has not changed. Not yet, but the mind within it has started to shift, just enough to notice. The warmth of the fire lingers into the morning, not as heat, but as a quiet memory in your body. You wake slowly, the ground firm beneath you, the air cool and still. Around you, the group begins to stir once more, following the same rhythm that has shaped every day so far. And yet, something from yesterday remains, a faint impression, a sense that the pauses you noticed were not isolated. You rise and stretch, feeling the stiffness in your limbs ease as you move. The early light spreads gently across the land, revealing familiar shapes, stones, low plants, distant trees. Everything appears unchanged, but your awareness of it feels sharper now. As the group begins to move, you pay closer attention. There is a difference in how they respond to the environment, not in every movement, not in every moment, but often enough to feel real. A slight hesitation before choosing a direction, a longer glance at something that might be useful. These are small things, but they are beginning to add up. To understand this shift, it helps to consider the role of memory. In earlier stages of human development, memory was likely short and practical, enough to recall where food had been found recently or where danger had appeared. But as cognitive abilities expanded, memory began to stretch further back, holding more detail, more connections. Studies of early human brain development suggest that improvements in working memory may have allowed individuals to retain information for longer periods. This would make it possible to compare present situations with past experiences in a more meaningful way. You begin to see this happening. The group approaches a patch of land where the soil looks disturbed. One individual slows down, scanning the ground carefully. Their posture shifts, more deliberate now. They kneel, touching the surface lightly, then look up toward a nearby cluster of trees. There is recognition here. Not just reaction, but recall. Perhaps something happened in this place before. A source of food, a hidden danger, whatever it is, the past is influencing the present. You feel a quiet sense of significance in that moment. Because memory changes everything. It allows patterns to form. It allows decisions to be shaped by more than immediate sensation. Nearby, a younger member of the group watches closely, then mimics the same behavior. They touch the ground, look around, pause. The action is repeated, but now it carries more meaning. Knowledge is not just being copied, it is being carried. Some researchers propose that this ability to retain and apply past experiences was a key turning point in human evolution. Others suggest that while memory improved, its impact on behavior may have been limited for a long time, remaining closely tied to survival rather than expanding into broader thought. As you continue walking, you notice how often the group returns to certain places, not randomly, but with a kind of familiarity. A path that feels known, even if it is not marked. This suggests a growing mental map of the environment. Archaeological evidence indicates that early humans were capable of navigating large territories, remembering locations of resources across distances. This would require not just memory, but the ability to organize that memory spatially. You imagine what that must feel like, to carry the land inside your mind. To know where water lies, where food can be found, where danger might be waiting. It is a quiet kind of awareness, but powerful. As the day continues, you begin to notice another subtle change. The group seems to anticipate more. When approaching a dense area of plants, they slow down before reaching it. When moving through open space, they adjust their spacing, as if expecting something that has not yet happened. This is not full planning, but it is close. It is the beginning of expectation. You pause for a moment, letting that idea settle. Expectation means thinking slightly ahead of the present, just enough to prepare, just enough to adjust behavior before something occurs. It is a small step, but an important one. The group stops near a fallen tree, its surface rough and weathered. Several individuals begin to search around it, lifting pieces of bark, examining what lies beneath. You notice how they return to this spot more than once. There must be something here that has been useful before. Insects, perhaps, or small creatures hidden within the wood. One individual finds something and quickly eats it. Another watches, then moves to a similar spot, repeating the action. This is learning through observation, but now guided by memory. An interesting detail emerges as you watch. One person seems to check a particular area of the tree first, almost as if they remember where success was found previously. It is a small preference, but it stands out. It suggests that memory is not just present. It is being used. Some interpretations of early human behavior suggest that these kinds of repeated actions may represent the earliest forms of strategy. Others caution that without clear evidence of intention, it is difficult to separate instinct from learned behavior. Still, the pattern is there. You feel it in the rhythm of the day. Less randomness, more familiarity, more connection between moments. The sun moves higher, warming the air around you. You feel it on your skin, steady and comforting. The sounds of the environment remain constant. Wind through grass, distant animal calls, the soft crunch of movement beneath your feet, and within that steady world, the mind is slowly becoming less reactive and more aware. As afternoon fades, the group begins to return once again to their resting place. The fire is rebuilt, as it always is, flames rising with quiet reliability. You sit beside it, watching as the light spreads across the ground. But tonight something feels different. There is a sense of familiarity in the space. Not just because you have been here before, but because the group seems to recognize it more clearly. They move with less hesitation. They settle more quickly, as if the place itself is remembered. You lean back slightly, feeling the warmth against your shoulders. The air cools as the sun disappears, bringing with it that familiar shift into night. Around you, the group relaxes, but you notice something in the way a few individuals look at each other. Not long, not deep, but longer than before. There is a moment of recognition, of shared presence. It fades quickly, but it is there. Experts continue to explore how and when social awareness expanded in early humans. Some believe that stronger memory may have played a role, allowing individuals to recognize others more consistently over time. Others suggest that emotional development and memory evolve together, each reinforcing the other. As the fire crackles softly, you let your gaze drift across the scene. Familiar faces, familiar place, familiar actions, and beneath it all, a growing sense that the present is no longer the only thing that exists. The past is beginning to leave its mark. Quietly, gently, but permanently, you close your eyes for a moment, listening to the steady rhythm of the fire. And when you open them again, the world feels just slightly more connected than before. Not fully changed, but no longer entirely the same. The fire greets you again in the early light, though now it feels less like a simple tool and more like a quiet center of life. You wake to its faint glow, ember still alive beneath a thin layer of ash. The air is cool, brushing gently across your skin, carrying the soft scent of smoke and dry grass. As the group begins to rise, you notice something that was not as clear before. They do not just move near each other, they move with each other. It is subtle at first, a shared turning of heads, a pause that spreads from one individual to another, a moment where several sets of eyes focus on the same thing at the same time. You stand and follow as they begin their morning search, stepping across uneven ground that feels familiar beneath your feet. The light is soft, still low in the sky, casting long shapes across the land. Ahead, one person stops and looks toward a cluster of trees. Without sound, two others shift their attention in the same direction. You feel it happen almost like a ripple, a tension spreading from one mind to another. This is not just awareness, it is shared awareness. To step back for a moment, this kind of behavior is often described by researchers as joint attention. It is the ability to focus on the same object or event as someone else, understanding that they are also focused on it. In modern humans, it is a key part of communication and learning, especially in early childhood. Here, you may be seeing its earliest form. The group moves slowly toward the trees, not scattered, but loosely coordinated. No one leads in a clear sense, yet they remain connected. Their spacing adjusts naturally, as if guided by something unspoken. You notice how this shared focus changes the feeling of the moment. There is less uncertainty, more cohesion. As they approach, one individual gestures slightly with their hand. It is not a clear signal, not a defined motion, but it draws the attention of the others. They respond by shifting position, spreading out just enough to cover more ground. It is a quiet kind of coordination, one that does not rely on language. Evidence from studies of early human groups suggests that cooperation became increasingly important for survival. Hunting larger animals, protecting one another, and sharing resources would have required some level of coordination beyond simple instinct. Some interpretations propose that joint attention may have been a crucial step in developing these abilities. Others suggest that cooperation could exist without deep shared understanding, driven more by repeated behavior than conscious awareness. As you walk among them, you can feel how both might be true. There is cooperation here, but it is still forming. A sudden movement in the trees draws everyone's gaze at once. Leaves shift, branches rustle. The group freezes, their bodies tightening in unison. For a moment, you hold your breath. Then, slowly, the shape of a small animal emerges, darting quickly across the ground before disappearing again. The tension releases, but something important remains. Every person saw the same thing, at the same time, and they reacted together. This shared moment creates a kind of connection that did not exist before. Not spoken, not explained, but felt. You continue walking, your mind settling into the rhythm of these interactions. The ground changes slightly, becoming softer, marked by faint impressions of past movement. You wonder if these paths are becoming known, not just individually, but collectively, a group memory, in a sense. As the sun rises higher, the air warms, carrying with it the faint hum of life. Insects move through the grass. Birds call from unseen places. The world feels full, but not overwhelming. The group spreads out again, searching for food. This time, you notice how often they glance toward one another. Not constantly, but enough to stay connected. One person finds something, a cluster of edible plants perhaps, and begins to gather. Another notices and joins them, then another. The activity draws them together without any clear signal. It is as if attention itself is guiding movement. There is a quiet efficiency to it, less wasted effort, more shared success. Research into early human behavior suggests that food sharing may have played a role in strengthening social bonds. When individuals benefit from each other's discoveries, it encourages cooperation. It creates a simple but powerful link between people. You watch as the gathered food is consumed. There is no formal distribution, no clear system of fairness, but there is also no conflict. Each person takes what they can within the flow of the group. An interesting detail stands out. One individual seems to wait slightly before taking their share, allowing another to go first. It is a small delay, but noticeable. This could be nothing, or it could be the faint beginning of social awareness. Experts have proposed that even simple forms of patience or restraint may signal early stages of understanding others. At the same time, it is difficult to know whether such behavior reflects intention or is simply part of learned patterns. Still, you feel the difference. The group is not just a collection of individuals anymore. It is becoming something more connected, As the day continues, you begin to sense how this shared attention shapes everything. Movement becomes smoother, reactions become more aligned. There is less hesitation when something changes. It is not perfect, not constant, but growing. The group eventually makes its way back toward the familiar resting place as the light begins to fade. The fire is rebuilt once again, its glow steady and reassuring. You sit down, letting the warmth settle into your body. Around you, the group gathers more closely than before, not by instruction, not by plan, but naturally. You notice how their gazes sometimes meet briefly, then shift away. These are not long exchanges, not filled with meaning as you might understand it, but they are longer than before, more aware, more connected. As the fire crackles softly, you find yourself reflecting on the change you've been witnessing. At first, there was only instinct. Then, memory began to shape action. And now, attention is starting to link individuals together, each step building on the last, each shift small, almost invisible on its own. But together they form something significant. Researchers continue to explore how these elements combined over time. Some believe that shared attention laid the groundwork for language, allowing individuals to reference the same objects and experiences. Others suggest that emotional bonds and shared goals were equally important in driving this development. As you sit there, watching the light flicker across the ground, you can feel how these pieces might begin to fit together. Attention, memory, connection, all moving slowly towards something greater. The night deepens, wrapping the group in a familiar calm. The fire burns steadily, its warmth a constant presence. You listen to the quiet sounds around you, breathing, soft movement, the gentle crackle of wood. And within that quiet, you sense the shift continuing. Not loud, not sudden, but steady, like the slow joining of separate threads into a single, stronger weave. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the warmth and stillness settle in. And when you open them again, the world feels just a little more shared than it did before. The fire's become a quiet constant now, something you almost expect to find waiting for you each evening and morning. Its glow lingers in your mind even as daylight returns, as if the warmth has begun to exist beyond the flames themselves. You rise with the group once more, the ground cool beneath your feet, the air carrying a soft stillness before the day fully begins. There is a familiar rhythm to everything now, but within that rhythm, something continues to shift. Today, you notice it in the way bodies move, not just where they go, but how they express. As the group begins to spread out across the land, searching for food and scanning the environment, one individual pauses and lifts their arm slightly. It is not a random movement. It is directed, intentional in a quiet, almost uncertain way. Another person sees it and responds. They adjust their path, moving slightly to the side as if guided by that small gesture. You feel a gentle sense of recognition. This is different. Until now, communication has been limited to shared attention and instinctive reactions. But this feels like something more deliberate, emotion meant to influence another. To step back for a moment, gestures are believed to have played a major role in the early stages of human communication. Long before structured language, movements of the body may have carried meaning. Hands, posture, even the direction of gaze could signal intention or draw attention. Some lines of research suggest that gesture may have come before spoken language. Others propose that both develop together, reinforcing each other over time. The evidence does not point clearly in one direction, but it does show that physical expression was important. You continue walking, watching more closely now. A person crouches near a patch of plants and glances toward another member of the group. Their head tilts slightly. Their hand moves, just enough to be noticed. The other individual approaches. No sound, no words, just movement. You begin to see how these small signals create a kind of silent conversation. It is not complex, not yet, but it is intentional, and that changes everything. The ground beneath you shifts from soft soil to a slightly rockier surface. You feel the uneven texture through each step, your balance adjusting without thought. Around you, the group continues their search. But now there is a subtle layer of coordination woven into their actions. One person points, not sharply, but with a slight extension of the arm. Another follows their gaze. A third moves closer, as if drawn by the shared focus. This is not just reacting to the environment anymore. It is shaping each other's behavior. There is a quiet moment that stands out. A younger individual struggles to open something small, perhaps a tough shell or piece of food. They try once, then again, their movements growing slightly more forceful. An older figure nearby watches. Then slowly, they reach out and take the object, demonstrating a different approach. Their hands move with practiced ease, applying pressure at a specific point. The shell cracks open. They return it. The younger one watches closely, then tries again, copying the movement. This time, it works! You feel a soft sense of significance settle into that moment. This is not just imitation anymore. It is guided learning. Evidence from early tool use and behavior suggests that teaching, even in simple forms, may have existed long before formal language. Demonstration and repetition would have allowed knowledge to pass more efficiently from one individual to another. There is something deeply human in that exchange. Even here, before words, before stories, the act of showing and learning is taking shape. You continue walking, the sun now higher, warming your shoulders and the top of your head. The air feels thicker, carrying the scent of plants and distant movement. Somewhere far off, you hear the faint sound of something larger moving through the landscape. The group reacts, but more smoothly now, not just stopping, but adjusting positions in relation to each other. One individual lowers their body slightly, another shifts behind a natural cover. There is awareness not only of the potential danger, but of each other's positions. This suggests something growing beneath the surface. An understanding of roles, not defined, not fixed, but present. Some interpretations of early human cooperation propose that individuals began to take on different positions within a group during moments of tension or opportunity. Others suggest that such coordination may have remained fluid, changing constantly without clear roles. As you watch, it feels like both could be true. There is no leader, but there is structure. The moment passes as the distant sound fades. The group relaxes again, returning to their steady rhythm, but the impression remains. They are not just together. They are beginning to act together. The afternoon moves gently, time passing without being counted. You notice more gestures now, small, almost easy to miss. A hand lifting slightly, a head turning with intention, a pause that invites another to notice. Each one adds to a growing sense of connection. You find yourself watching their faces more closely. Expressions are still simple, but they linger a little longer. A tightening around the eyes, a softening of posture, signals that carry meaning, even if that meaning is not fully understood. It is as if the body is learning to speak before the mind has fully caught up. As the light begins to fade, the group makes its way back once more. The path feels familiar now, both to you and to them. Feet move with less hesitation, guided by memory and shared experience. The fire is rebuilt, as it always is. You sit beside it, the warmth spreading slowly through you. The glow flickers across the ground, touching each face in turn. Tonight, the group feels closer, not physically, though they do sit near each other, but connected in a way that is harder to describe. You notice a moment where two individuals exchange a glance that lasts just a little longer than before. There is no clear emotion in it, but there is recognition. Awareness. You think about everything you have seen today. Gestures, guided actions, shared responses, each one small on its own, but together they form something new, a quiet language of movement. Researchers often point to this stage as a bridge between instinct and communication. Not language as you know it, but a system of signals that allows individuals to influence each other more directly. The exact path from gesture to speech remains uncertain. Some evidence supports the idea that vocal sounds gradually took over. Other perspectives suggest that both forms existed side by side for a long time. As the fire crackles softly, you let your thoughts settle. You realize that something important is happening here. Not loudly, not dramatically, but steadily. The body's beginning to carry meaning, to express intention, to connect minds in ways that were not possible before. The night deepens, wrapping everything in a gentle stillness. The air cools, the warmth of the fire becoming more noticeable against your skin. You listen to the quiet around you. Soft breathing, the faint shift of movement, the low, steady crackle of wood. And within that calm, you sense the change continuing. Movement becoming message, gesture becoming connection, a silent language forming one motion at a time. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the warmth settle deeper. And when you open them again, the world feels just a little more expressive than it did before. The morning arrives softly again, light spreading across the land in pale layers that slowly reveal the shapes around you. The fire has dimmed to a quiet glow, its warmth lingering just enough to keep the chill away. You sit for a moment before standing, letting your senses settle into this familiar rhythm. There is a growing sense now that each day is not entirely the same as the last. Small changes continue to gather. Today, you begin to notice it in the sounds. As the group rises and begins to move, the usual quiet fills the air. Footsteps, the brushing of grass, the distant calls of animals. But woven into the familiar sounds, there is something else. A slight variation, a tone that feels more directed. One individual lets out a short vocal sound, not loud, not urgent, but distinct. Another turns their head almost immediately, responding not just to the presence of sound, but to its shape. You pause, listening carefully. This is different from the calls you heard before. Earlier sounds were reactive, sharp noises tied to surprise or alertness, low murmurs without clear direction. But this feels more intentional, as if the sound is meant to reach someone, not just express a moment. To understand this shift, it helps to consider how vocal communication may have developed. Human ancestors already had the physical ability to produce a range of sounds, though not with the precision of modern speech. Over time, these sounds may have begun to carry more consistent meaning. Some researchers suggest that repeated associations between sounds and events could have led to early forms of symbolic communication. Others believe that vocal changes alone were not enough, and that gestures remained the dominant form of interaction for much longer. As you walk with the group, you begin to hear more of these subtle vocalizations. A short sound when someone finds food, a slightly different one when attention is needed. They are not words, but they are not random. You feel a quiet sense of pattern forming. The ground beneath you is soft again, damp in places where water has settled. Your steps leave faint impressions that quickly fade as you move forward. The air carries a gentle warmth now, the sun rising higher with steady calm. Nearby, two individuals move through a patch of low plants. One reaches down and pulls something from the ground, holding it up briefly. They make a soft sound, almost like a low call. The other turns and approaches. No gesture this time, just sound. You watch closely as this exchange unfolds. The second individual examines the object, then begins to gather similar items nearby. The first continues, the two now working side by side. This moment feels important. Sound has drawn attention, directed it, shaped behavior. Evidence from studies of early human anatomy shows that changes in the vocal tract over time allowed for a wider range of sounds. While fully developed speech would come much later, these early vocal abilities may have provided the foundation. There is still uncertainty about how quickly this transition occurred. Some interpretations suggest that meaningful vocal signals developed gradually over long periods. Others propose that once certain physical and cognitive thresholds were reached, communication may have expanded more rapidly. As you continue observing, you sense that you are witnessing something in its earlier stages, a voice that is not yet language, but is moving toward it. The group moves through a slightly denser area now, where the ground is uneven and covered with scattered branches. You feel them shift beneath your feet, small cracks and soft breaks marking each step. A sudden sound breaks the quiet. It comes from one individual, a sharper tone this time, not loud, but clear. The group reacts quickly. Heads turn, bodies adjust, attention converges. You follow their gaze and see a movement in the distance, something larger, perhaps, though it remains partially hidden by the landscape. The sound has carried meaning, not just emotion, but information. You feel a quiet sense of realization. This is the beginning of shared signals that go beyond immediate presence. A sound can travel further than a gesture. It can reach someone who is not looking. It expands connection. As the moment passes and the group settles again, you notice how the sound lingers in your mind, not as a word, but as a distinct shape, recognizable, repeatable. That may be the key. Repeated sounds can become stable. Stable sounds can become symbols, and symbols can carry meaning beyond the moment. You continue walking, your attention drawn to every small variation in sound now. A soft hum as someone works, a brief call that seems to invite attention, a low tone that signals something found or something needed. Each one adds to a growing system, not structured, not fixed, but forming. There is a small detail that catches your interest. One individual seems to use a particular sound more often than others, almost like a preference. It is subtle, but noticeable. This suggests that variation exists even within these early vocal patterns. Over time, such variations might lead to more defined sounds, more consistent associations, or they might fade. There is no clear answer. The evidence from early human fossils and tools provides hints, but much remains uncertain. The exact path from simple vocalization to structured language is still one of the great questions in human history. As the day moves forward, you begin to feel how sound changes the atmosphere of the group. It creates brief connections across distance. It allows attention to shift more quickly. It adds another layer to the growing complexity of interaction. When the group begins to return once more toward their resting place, the air cools again, carrying that familiar evening calm. The fire is rebuilt, flames rising with steady patience. You sit close, feeling the warmth against your hands. Around you, the group settles, and now, the quiet is not entirely silent. There are small sounds, soft vocalizations that pass between individuals, not constant, not overwhelming, but present. You listen closely. Each sound feels like a step, a small movement towards something larger. You think about the gestures you saw before, the shared attention, the growing memory, and now sound joining them, each layer building upon the last. Researchers often view this period as a critical phase in the development of communication. While full language would take much longer to emerge, these early vocal signals may have laid the groundwork. As the fire crackles softly, you let your thoughts drift. You imagine how these sounds might evolve, how they might become more precise, more varied, more meaningful, but for now they remain simple, gentle, almost easy to overlook. The night deepens, the stars appearing once again above you. The air cools further, wrapping the group in a quiet stillness. You close your eyes for a moment, listening, the soft crackle of fire, the steady rhythm of breath, and within it all, the faint presence of voices beginning to take shape. Not yet words, but no longer just noise. Something in between, something growing, and as you open your eyes again, the world feels just a little more alive with sound than it did before. The morning air feels slightly warmer today, as if the world itself is easing into change alongside you. You rise slowly, brushing your hand across the ground where the fire once burned, feeling the faint trace of warmth still held within the earth. Around you, the group begins their quiet routine, movement steady, familiar, and yet gently evolving. You step forward with them, noticing how your awareness now stretches beyond simple observation. You are listening, watching, waiting for the small differences, and today, those differences begin to gather around something new, meaning. As the group moves through the landscape, one individual pauses beside a large stone. It stands out slightly from the others, its surface smoother, its shape more defined. The person touches it briefly, then looks toward another member of the group and makes a soft sound. The second individual approaches. They both look at the stone, then, without hesitation, they move on. It is a simple moment, but something about it lingers. You sense that the sound was not just a call for attention, it carried a shared understanding. To understand why this matters, it helps to consider how humans began to assign meaning to the world around them. At some point, objects were no longer just things to react to. They became recognized, remembered, and perhaps even categorized in early ways. Evidence from ancient sites suggests that early humans often returned to specific locations repeatedly, places that held particular importance, such as water sources or reliable food areas. Over time, these places may have gained a kind of mental identity, a recognition that went beyond the immediate moment. You continue walking, your eyes drawn to the environment in a new way. The trees, the stones, the patches of grass all feel slightly more defined, as if they are beginning to stand apart from one another in the mind. A child nearby picks up a small object, a piece of wood or bone, and holds it up. They make a soft sound, repeating it twice. Another child nearby looks over, then picks up a similar object. They repeat the sound. You pause, feeling a quiet sense of significance. This is not just sound, it is association. The sound is being linked to the object, even if the connection is fragile, even if it fades quickly. It is there. Some researchers propose that this kind of association marks an early step towards symbolic thinking, the idea that a sound or gesture can represent something else, something outside of itself. Others remain cautious, suggesting that repeated behaviors do not necessarily indicate true symbolic understanding. It is possible that these sounds are still tied closely to immediate context, without deeper meaning. But as you watch, the pattern feels real. The group continues moving, and you begin to hear more of these repeated sounds. Not many, not consistent, but enough to notice. A particular tone when someone finds a certain type of food, a slightly different one when encountering a familiar place. They are not words in the way you would recognize, but they are beginning to point, to indicate, to mean. The ground beneath you becomes firmer as you move into a more open area. The wind picks up slightly, brushing across your skin and carrying the distant scent of water. You hear it before you see it, a soft, steady sound that draws your attention forward. Several individuals begin to move in that direction, not all at once, but gradually, as if guided by a shared recognition. When you reach the source, a shallow stream winding gently through the land, you notice how the group approaches it with familiarity. They kneel, drink, and settle briefly. One person touches the water, then makes a soft sound. Another responds with the same sound. It is repeated again. A pattern, a shared signal tied to this place. You feel a quiet sense of wonder, because this is how the world begins to take shape in the mind, not just as a series of experiences, but as something that can be named, even in the simplest way. Archaeological findings have uncovered evidence that early humans used consistent tool styles across regions, suggesting that knowledge and perhaps meaning were shared within groups. This implies that certain patterns, whether in objects or behaviors, were recognized and maintained. As you sit by the water, you watch the reflections ripple and shift. The light dances across the surface, creating movement where there is none. One individual stares at it for a moment longer than necessary. You notice that again, That pause, that quiet attention, perhaps this growing sense of meaning is tied to that ability to linger, to hold something in the mind just a little longer as the group begins to move again. You follow, feeling the rhythm settle into your body. The day continues much as before, searching, gathering, moving, but now each action feels layered, not just physical, but mental. There is a growing sense that the world is being organized, even if only in the smallest ways. This plant is like that one. This place is like the one before. This sound connects to this object. It is the beginning of structure, of pattern, of understanding. Some interpretations suggest that this stage of development may have been crucial for the emergence of language. Without the ability to associate sounds with objects or ideas, communication could not expand beyond immediate signals. Others propose that symbolic thinking may have appeared much later, and that these early associations remained limited for long periods. The evidence leaves room for multiple possibilities. But here, in this quiet moment, it feels as though something is taking shape. The group returns once more to their resting place as evening approaches. The fire is rebuilt, its light steady and familiar. You sit beside it, feeling the warmth spread through you. Around you, the group settles, and as you listen, you hear it again, a soft sound, repeated between two individuals. It is brief, easy to miss, but now you recognize it, not just as a sound, but as something that carries meaning. You look at the object nearby, a piece of wood, a stone, something simple, and you wonder, is it being named? Not in the way you would name it, not with language, but with a shared signal, a beginning. Experts often explore this stage as the early roots of symbolic communication, where sounds and gestures start to stand in for objects or ideas. While the exact timeline remains uncertain, the gradual layering of these abilities is widely accepted as a key part of human cognitive evolution. The fire crackles softly, drawing your attention back to the present. But the present is no longer just what it was. It carries echoes now, connections, links between sound and object, between experience and memory, between individuals. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the warmth and quiet settle in. And when you open them again, the world feels just a little more defined, not fully understood, but beginning to take shape. One sound at a time, the fire glows softly as another evening settles around you. Its light steady and familiar now. You sit close, feeling the warmth against your hands, and listen as the quiet of the group deepens. The sounds of the day have faded, replaced by the gentle rhythm of breathing and the occasional crackle of wood shifting in the heat. There is something different about this moment, not in what you see, but in what is beginning to form between moments. You watch as one individual lifts a piece of wood from the ground and turns it slowly in their hands. They look toward another member of the group, then begin to move in a particular way. Their arms shift, their posture changes, their movements repeat with a certain pattern. They are not simply using the object, they are showing something. The second individual watches closely, their attention fixed on the sequence of actions. There is no interruption, no distraction, just focused observation. You feel a quiet sense of recognition. This is more than imitation. It is the beginning of shared experience. To understand this shift, it helps to consider how humans began to pass on not just actions, but meaning. Over time, repeated behaviors may have taken on a kind of narrative form. Not spoken stories, but sequences that could be observed, remembered, and repeated. Evidence drawn from early tool-making traditions reveals that certain techniques were preserved across generations with surprising consistency. The shapes of tools, the methods used to create them, even the order of steps followed patterns that lasted for thousands of years. This suggests that knowledge was not only learned, but carried forward in a structured way. You look back at the individual with a piece of wood. They repeat the motion again, slowly, almost deliberately. The observer mirrors the movement, not perfectly, but with clear intention. There's a rhythm to it now, a sequence, and within that sequence, something begins to take shape, a kind of story without words. You shift your position slightly, the ground firm beneath you, the air cooling as night deepens. The firelight flickers across the faces around you, creating movement and shadow that seem almost alive. Nearby, another pair engages in a similar exchange. One acts, the other watches. Then the roles reverse. It is quiet, simple, but meaningful. These moments feel different from the earlier demonstrations you witnessed. There is more structure now, more repetition, more attention to the order of actions. This may be an early form of storytelling, not in the sense of describing events or imagining distant worlds, but in the ability to recreate a sequence, to share an experience across time, even if only by a few moments. Some interpretations suggest that storytelling began in exactly this way, through action rather than speech. Others propose that true storytelling requires symbolic language, and that these early behaviors, while important, do not yet meet that threshold. Still, as you watch, it feels like the boundary is beginning to blur. The group settles more closely around the fire tonight. The circle feels tighter, more connected. Movements are slower, more deliberate, as if the presence of others now carries more weight. You notice a moment where several individuals focus on the same sequence of actions being performed by one member. Their attention aligns, not just briefly, but sustained over time. This shared focus creates something new, a collective experience. It is not just one person learning, it is many together. You feel the quiet significance of that, because shared experience allows something to exist beyond the individual. It allows knowledge to spread, to grow, to persist. The fire crackles softly, sending small sparks upward into the dark sky. You follow one with your eyes as it rises, glowing for a moment before fading. Your attention lingers, just as theirs does. You begin to realize that attention itself is becoming more stable, less fleeting, more directed. This stability may be one of the key foundations for more complex thinking. When attention can be held on a single sequence or idea, even briefly, it creates the possibility for reflection, for comparison, for understanding. Some lines of evidence suggest that this kind of focused attention played a role in the development of early teaching and learning behaviors. Others note that attention alone is not enough, and that other cognitive changes would have been necessary. As you sit there, it feels like one piece of a larger puzzle. The group begins to quiet further as the night deepens. Some lie down, their bodies curling slightly for warmth. Others remain seated, their gazes still drawn to the fire and the movements within the circle. You notice one individual tracing a pattern in the dirt with their finger. It is not clear what it represents, if anything. The motion repeats, forming a shape, then fading as the ground shifts. They pause, then begin again. This small act feels almost like play, or perhaps experimentation. It's a detail that might easily be overlooked, but it carries a certain weight. The act of repeating a pattern, even without clear purpose, may reflect a growing ability to create and recreate forms. Over time, such behaviors could lead to more deliberate markings, more consistent patterns. But for now, it remains simple, quiet, uncertain. The night air cools further, brushing gently across your skin. The warmth of the fire becomes more noticeable, drawing you closer. The group breathes in slow, steady rhythms, the sound blending with the soft crackle of burning wood. You let your gaze drift across the scene, faces illuminated by flickering light, hands resting or moving gently, eyes that linger just a little longer than before. There is a sense now that something is being shared, even without words. A sequence, a memory, a moment that can be passed from one to another. Researchers studying early human behavior often point to the importance of shared activity in building social cohesion. When individuals engage in the same actions, focus on the same events, and repeat patterns together, It strengthens the bonds within the group. As you sit there, you can feel that bond forming. Not suddenly, not completely, but steadily. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the warmth settle deeper into your body. The sounds around you soften, blending into a gentle background rhythm. And when you open them again, the fire still burns, the group still gathered, the world still quiet. But something has changed. Not in what is visible, but in what is carried between them. A sequence of actions, a shared moment, a silent story beginning to take shape. The fire has burned low by morning, its embers resting in a quiet glow beneath thin ash. You wake slowly, feeling the gentle warmth beneath your hand and the cool air brushing across your face. Around you, the group begins to stir again, their movements soft and unhurried, as if the night has settled deeper into them. You sit up and look around. There is a sense now that each day carries something forward from the last, not just in memory, but in the way actions unfold. As the group begins to move out across the land, you follow, your attention drawn to their hands. There is something different in how they use them, not simply reacting, not just grasping or pulling, but shaping. One individual crouches near a cluster of stones, selecting a piece that catches their interest. They turn it slowly, examining its surface, then strike it against another stone with a measured motion. A sharp sound breaks the quiet. A fragment splits away. They pause, looking closely at the new edge. Then they strike again. The rhythm is steady, deliberate. You feel a quiet sense of focus in the air. To understand this moment, it helps to consider how tools began to change over time. Early stone tools, often referred to as older one tools, were relatively simple, created by striking one stone against another to produce sharp edges. Later, more refined tools began to appear, showing greater control and intention in their design. These developments suggest that early humans were not just reacting to immediate needs, but beginning to imagine the result of an action before completing it. You watch as the individual continues shaping the stone. Each strike is placed more carefully now, less random, more precise. There is a goal forming, even if it is not fully conscious. Nearby, another member of the group picks up a similar stone and attempts the same action. Their first strikes are less effective, fragments breaking in uneven ways. They pause, glancing toward the first individual, then adjust their movement. The next strike is closer, more controlled. This is not just copying, it is refinement, the ability to compare outcomes and adjust behavior accordingly. Some researchers point to this stage as evidence of planning ability, the idea that an individual can hold an image of a desired result and work toward it step by step. Others suggest that repeated practice alone could produce similar results, without the need for abstract thinking. As you watch, it feels like both forces may be at work, repetition guiding action, but also something more, an awareness of outcome. You kneel beside them, picking up a small stone yourself. It feels cool and solid in your hand, its surface rough but shaped by time. You imagine striking it, shaping it, altering it. It is a simple act, but it carries intention. The group continues working in this area for some time. The sound of stone against stone echoes softly, creating a steady rhythm that blends with the natural sounds around you. You notice how attention remains focused longer here. Less wandering, more sustained effort. This suggests a growing ability to concentrate on a single task. A small but important shift. In many archaeological sites, clusters of stone tools have been found in specific locations, suggesting that early humans returned to the same areas to create and refine their tools. These places may have functioned as early workspaces, where knowledge was practiced and shared. You look around and wonder if this is one of those places. The ground is scattered with fragments, edges shaped and reshaped, a quiet record of repeated effort. One detail catches your attention. A tool is set aside, not used immediately, but kept. This is new. Until now, most objects have been used and discarded in the moment. But this suggests something different. Retention. The idea that an object can be useful later. It is a small step toward planning beyond the present. As the group begins to move again, you notice how some individuals carry tools with them. Not all, but enough to feel intentional. The weight of the stone changes how they move slightly, a subtle shift. But meaningful. The day continues, the sun rising higher, warming the land and your skin. The air carries a gentle hum of life, insects moving, distant calls echoing faintly. The group uses the tools throughout the day, cutting, scraping, breaking, each action slightly more efficient than before. There is a growing sense that tools are no longer just helpful. They are extensions of the body, enhancements. You feel the quiet significance of that, because when a tool becomes an extension of the body, it changes how the mind works. It expands what's possible. Some interpretations suggest that tool use played a major role in shaping human cognition, encouraging problem solving and forward thinking. Others caution that while tools were important, they were only one part of a much larger process. As you walk, you consider how each of these changes connects. Memory, attention, gesture, sound, and now tools shaped with intention, each one building on the last. The group begins to return as the day fades into evening once more. The fire is rebuilt, its light steady and reassuring. You sit beside it, placing your hand near the warmth. One individual brings a tool with them, setting it down carefully near the edge of the firelight. They glance at it briefly, then settle. That glance feels important. Recognition, value. You watch as another individual picks up the tool, examining it, turning it in the light. They run their fingers along its edge, then place it back. This exchange carries meaning, not spoken, but understood. You listen to the quiet sounds around you, the crackle of fire, the soft shifting of bodies, the faint rhythm of breath, and within that calm, you sense the change continuing. Objects are no longer just objects. They are shaped, chosen, kept, shared. The mind is beginning to reach forward, to imagine, to create, even in the simplest ways. You close your eyes for a moment, feeling the warmth settle deeper, and when you open them again, the world feels just a little more intentional than it did before. The morning feels quieter than before, though nothing in the landscape has truly changed. The same pale light stretches across the ground, the same cool air brushes against your skin, and yet, as you rise and follow the group once more, there is a subtle sense that their movements are no longer entirely individual. They are beginning to move with purpose together. You step carefully over uneven ground, your feet adjusting to each shift in texture. Around you, the group spreads out slightly, but not as loosely as before. There is a gentle cohesion now, as if an invisible thread keeps them within reach of one another. Ahead, a few individuals slow their pace. The others follow, not immediately, not all at once, but in a way that feels connected. You notice how their spacing changes, widening slightly, then narrowing again. There is no spoken direction, no clear leader, and yet the group seems to respond as a whole. This is cooperation in a new form. To understand its importance, it helps to consider how early human survival depended on working together. Larger prey, for example, would have been difficult to hunt alone. Protection from predators also improved with numbers. Over time, coordinated group behavior likely increased the chances of survival. What you are seeing now may be an early stage of that coordination. The group moves toward a more open area where the ground slopes gently downward. The air feels different here, carrying the faint scent of animals. You can sense it even before you see any sign. Several individuals begin to spread out more deliberately. One moves to the left, another shifts slightly to the right. The rest remain closer to the center. It is not perfect, not planned in a structured way, but it is not random either. You feel a quiet tension building, a shared awareness of something just beyond sight. A sudden movement in the distance confirms it. A small group of animals, grazing cautiously, their heads lifting occasionally as they scan the surroundings. The humans stop. Stillness settles across the group. And in that stillness, something remarkable happens. They begin to adjust their positions in relation to one another, not just reacting to the animals, but to each other. One individual lowers their body, moving slowly forward. Another circles slightly, increasing the distance between them. A third remains still, as if waiting. You watch closely, your breath soft and steady. This is not instinct alone. It is coordination, the kind that requires awareness beyond the self. Archaeological evidence from later periods reveals organized hunting strategies, where groups work together to guide animals into traps or ambush points. While those behaviors would become more advanced over time, the roots of such cooperation likely began in simpler forms like this. You feel the quiet significance of what is unfolding. The group is acting as a unit, not perfectly, not consciously in the way you might think, but together. One individual makes a soft sound, low and brief. Another responds with a slight movement. The animals shift, sensing something. The moment holds, then breaks. The animals move away, not in panic, but with enough caution to avoid danger. The humans do not chase, not this time, but the experience remains. A shared attempt, a coordinated effort. You sense that something important has been learned, even if it is not fully understood. As the tension fades, the group regathers more closely. There is no sign of frustration, no visible reaction to the outcome, but their movements feel slightly more aligned than before, as if the attempt itself has shaped them. You continue walking with them, the sun rising higher, warming the air. The landscape stretches out around you, open and quiet, filled with subtle sounds and shifting light. The group resumes their search for food, but now you notice how often they remain within sight of one another. There's a balance forming. Between independence and connection, one individual finds a cluster of edible plants and begins to gather. Another notices and joins them. Soon, a few more follow. This pattern repeats throughout the day, discovery leading to sharing, attention spreading across the group. There is a quiet efficiency to it, less duplication, more cooperation. In some early human communities, food sharing became a central part of survival. Evidence from bone remains and living patterns suggests that individuals often relied on one another rather than competing constantly. This may have strengthened social bonds and encouraged group cohesion. As you observe, you begin to feel how that bond might be forming here. Not through rules, but through repeated interaction. There is a small moment that stands out. One individual gathers more than they can immediately consume. They pause, holding the food, then move closer to another member of the group. They do not hand it over directly, but they allow it to be taken. This simple act carries weight. It suggests a level of tolerance, perhaps even the beginning of sharing. It is not formal, not guaranteed, but it happens, and that matters. Some interpretations suggest that food sharing may have played a role in the development of social trust. Others note that such behaviors could vary widely depending on environment and circumstance. As you walk, you reflect on how these small acts accumulate, each one shaping the group, each one strengthening connection. The day moves gently toward evening, the light softening as the sun lowers. The air cools again, carrying that familiar sense of transition. The group returns once more to their resting place. The fire is rebuilt, flames rising steadily, casting warm light across the ground. You sit beside it, feeling the heat settle into your hands. Around you, the group gathers more closely than before. There is a quiet sense of familiarity now, not just with the place, but with each other. You notice how their movements around the fire feel more coordinated. Individuals shift to make space, adjust their positions without conflict, settle into a shared arrangement. It is subtle, but clear. The group is becoming more than a collection of individuals. It is becoming a unit. You listen to the sounds around you, the steady crackle of wood, the soft rhythm of breathing, the occasional low sound passing between individuals, and within that calm, you sense the change continuing, cooperation shaping behavior, shared effort shaping experience. a growing awareness that survival is no longer just personal, it is collective. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the warmth and quiet settle around you. And when you open them again, the fire still burns, the group still gathered, the world still calm. But the way they exist within it has shifted, slightly, steadily. Together, the ground feels warmer beneath your feet as the day begins, holding on to the memory of yesterday's sun. You walk with the group once more, the rhythm of their movement now familiar, almost comforting. There is a steady pace to everything, a quiet flow that carries you forward without urgency. And yet, something within that flow is becoming more layered. You begin to notice it in the way actions unfold, not just what happens, but what follows. As the group moves across a stretch of uneven land, one individual steps onto a loose stone. It shifts under their weight, causing a slight stumble. They catch themselves quickly, regaining balance without falling. The moment passes, but not entirely. A short time later, another individual approaches the same area. Their pace slows slightly as they near the loose stones. Their steps become more careful, more deliberate. You pause, watching closely. This is not coincidence, it is connection. To understand why this matters, consider how awareness of cause and effect shapes behavior. At some point, early humans began to link actions with outcomes in a more consistent way, not just reacting to events, but anticipating the results of certain movements or choices. You feel that connection forming here. The stumble, the adjustment, the memory of what just happened influencing what happens next. It is simple, but powerful. The group continues moving, the land stretching out before you in soft variations of grass and stone. The air is warm, carrying the faint hum of insects and distant movement. You notice another moment. One individual uses a stone tool to break open something hard. They strike it once, twice, then shift the angle slightly before striking again. This time, it opens more easily. Later, another member of the group attempts the same action. Their first strikes are less effective. They pause, adjust their position, then try again with a different angle. The result improves. You feel a quiet sense of recognition. This is learning through outcome, not just copying, not just repeating, but adjusting based on what works. Over long stretches of time, behaviors like this tend to become more refined. Repeated actions that lead to successful results are more likely to be used again. Gradually, this creates patterns of behavior that feel almost intentional, even if they began as simple trial and error. As you walk, you begin to see these patterns forming more clearly. When something works, it is remembered. When it fails, it is changed. The group approaches a cluster of low trees, their branches spreading wide and casting soft shadows on the ground. Several individuals begin to search beneath them, moving slowly, carefully. One person reaches for a branch, pulling it down slightly. Another notices and moves to a similar branch, repeating the action. A third adjusts their position, finding a better angle. Each action builds on the last. It is not planned in advance, but it is not random either. You feel a quiet sense of progression, a chain of cause and effect, linking one moment to the next. There is a small detail that catches your attention. One individual hesitates before stepping into a patch of ground where plants are denser. They pause, looking down, then step around it instead. Moments later, you notice a slight movement in that same patch. Something hidden, perhaps an insect, perhaps something less harmless. The decision to avoid it may not be fully conscious, but it is influenced by past experience. This is the beginning of prediction, the idea that what has happened before can shape what you expect to happen next. You feel how important that is, because prediction allows for preparation, and preparation changes survival. Some interpretations suggest that early humans developed this awareness gradually, through repeated exposure to similar situations. Others note that the ability to generalize from one experience to another may have taken much longer to fully develop. As you continue walking, you begin to sense how these small connections are changing the group. Their movements feel less reactive, more considered. There is still immediacy, still instinct, but now it is layered with something else, a growing understanding of consequences. The sun moves higher, warming your skin, the light bright and steady. The world around you feels full, but calm. The sounds of life continue without interruption, a constant backdrop to the quiet evolution taking place. The group pauses near a familiar resting area, where the ground dips slightly and the air feels cooler. Some sit, others remain standing, their attention drifting across the surroundings. You notice how they interact with objects now. A stone is not just a stone. It is something that can be used in a certain way. A branch is not just a branch. It can be pulled, moved, shaped. Each object carries potential based on past outcomes. You sit down, letting your hand rest on the ground. The texture feels familiar now, the small variations in surface almost expected. You think about how different this world would feel without that sense of connection. If every moment stood alone, without influence from what came before, but that is no longer the case. Moments are beginning to link together. Experience is starting to build. The group rises again as the day begins to fade. The light softens, shadows stretching longer across the land. The air cools gently, bringing that familiar shift toward evening. They return once more to the resting place. The fire is rebuilt, flames rising with steady ease. You sit beside it, feeling the warmth settle into your body. Around you, the group gathers, and now their movements feel more intentional. Not fully, not completely, but noticeably. You watch as one individual adjusts their position near the fire, moving slightly to avoid the smoke. Another follows, shifting in a similar way. Cause, effect, action, adjustment. It is everywhere now. Small connections, quietly shaping behavior. You listen to the sounds around you. The crackle of fire, the soft rhythm of breathing, the faint movement of bodies settling into place. And within that calm you sense the change continuing. The world is no longer just happening. It is being understood. Piece by piece, moment by moment, you close your eyes for a moment, letting the warmth and quiet settle around you. And when you open them again, everything looks the same, but it feels different. Because now, each action carries a trace of what came before, and a hint of what might come next. The warmth of the fire fades into the morning as you wake, replaced by the cool softness of early light. You sit quietly for a moment, listening to the slow breathing around you, the faint rustle of movement as the group begins to rise. There is something new in the air today, not something you can see clearly, but something you can feel, a quiet depth just beneath the surface. As you stand and begin walking with the group, you notice it in the way they move near one another. The distance between individuals feels more intentional now. Not too close, not too far, a kind of balance that keeps them connected. But what draws your attention most is something else. The way they respond to each other. One individual stumbles slightly over uneven ground, their foot catching on a hidden root. The movement is small, quickly corrected, but another nearby pauses, turning their head toward them. They do not move closer, they do not touch, but they notice. That moment of noticing lingers. You continue walking, the ground shifting beneath your feet, the air warming as the sun rises higher. The sounds of the environment remain steady, a gentle hum of life moving around you. A short while later, a younger member of the group lets out a soft, uncertain sound. It is not sharp or urgent, but it carries a different tone. Several individuals turn, their attention gathers. One of the older figures moves slightly closer, not rushing, not reacting with urgency, but adjusting their position in response. You feel a quiet shift in the atmosphere. This is not just shared attention, it is something more. To understand this moment, it helps to consider how emotional awareness may have developed. At some point, early humans began to respond not only to physical events, but to the states of others. This could include distress, comfort, or simple changes in behaviour. There are hints of this in fossil records and in comparisons with other social animals. Certain patterns of care and response appear again and again, suggesting that emotional connection played a role in survival. As you watch, you begin to sense that connection forming here. Not clearly, not fully, but present. The younger individual settles, their posture relaxing slightly. The older one remains nearby for a moment longer, then moves away. No words are exchanged, but something has passed between them. You walk on, your awareness drawn to these small exchanges. They're easy to miss, subtle and quiet, but they carry a certain weight, a glance that lingers, a shift in position, a moment of stillness that seems to acknowledge another. You begin to feel how these moments might build into something larger. The group reaches a shaded area where the ground is soft and cool. Several individuals sit, resting. Their movements slower now as the day continues. You sit with them, feeling the texture of the earth beneath your hand. Nearby, two individuals interact in a way that catches your attention. One reaches toward an object, then pauses as the other moves closer. There is a brief hesitation, a moment where their movements adjust in response to each other. Then, as without conflict, they settle into a shared space. This is small, but meaningful. It suggests a growing awareness of others as individuals, not just part of the environment, but beings with their own actions, their own presence. Some perspectives suggest that this kind of awareness may have been essential for the development of social bonds. Others point out that such behaviours can arise without deep understanding, simply through repeated interaction over time. As you sit there, it feels like something in between, an awareness that is still forming. The day moves gently forward, the sun high now, the air warm and steady. The group continues their search for food, their movements familiar but increasingly connected. You notice how often individuals now adjust their behaviour in response to others. A slight pause to avoid collision, a shift to allow space, a movement that follows another without hesitation. Each action reflects a growing sensitivity to those nearby. This sensitivity may be the beginning of empathy, not in the complex sense you understand today, but in its simplest form, an awareness of another's presence and state. There is a quiet moment that stands out. One individual sits apart from the group, their posture slightly withdrawn. Another notices, pausing briefly before moving a little closer. They do not interact directly, but they remain near. The distance closes, just enough. It is difficult to know what this means. There are no words, no clear signals, but the movement feels intentional, like a response to something unseen. Researchers often examine early social behaviour through patterns like these, looking for signs of emotional connection. The evidence is subtle, and interpretations vary. But there is a general sense that human relationships became more complex over time. As you watch, you can feel that complexity beginning to take shape. The group is no longer just moving together. They are responding to each other, in small, quiet ways. The afternoon begins to fade, the light softening as the sun lowers. The air cools again, carrying that familiar transition into evening. The group returns to their resting place. The fire is rebuilt, flames rising steadily, casting warm light across the ground. You sit beside it, feeling the heat settle into your hands. Around you, the group gathers more closely. There is a sense of comfort now, not just in the fire, but in each other. You notice how their positions around the fire feel more deliberate. Individuals sit near those they have interacted with during the day. The spacing feels less random, more familiar. You listen to the sounds around you, the steady crackle of wood, the soft rhythm of breathing, the occasional low sound passing between individuals. And within that calm, you sense the change continuing. Awareness is no longer just outward. It is turning inward as well. Not fully, not clearly, but beginning. The presence of others is being felt, not just seen. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the warmth and quiet settle around you. And when you open them again, the fire still burns, the group still gathered, but something within those quiet interactions has deepened. A subtle thread connecting one individual to another, soft, fragile, but growing. The night slips away almost unnoticed, and when you open your eyes again, the sky has already begun to lighten. A soft grey stretches across the horizon, slowly giving shape to the land around you. The fire rests in quiet embers, its warmth faint but still present beneath your hand. You rise with the group, your movements unhurried, your senses settling into the now familiar rhythm. But something about today feels different. There is a sense of time that lingers, not just the passing of light into dark, but something deeper. As you walk, you begin to notice how the group responds to patterns that extend beyond the immediate moment. One individual pauses near a patch of ground where plants grow in clusters. They do not gather right away. Instead, they look, their gaze lingering as if comparing what they see to something remembered. Then they move on. Later, another individual returns to the same place. This time, the plants are gathered. You feel a quiet realization begin to form. The moment was not lost. It was held. To understand this shift, it helps to consider how awareness of time may have developed. Early humans likely lived closely tied to natural cycles, responding to changes in light, temperature, and the availability of resources. Over time, patterns in these cycles may have become more recognizable. Repeated experiences could begin to form expectations, not just what is happening now, but what tends to happen in certain places at certain times. You walk alongside the group, feeling the ground beneath your feet, the warmth of the rising sun on your skin. The air carries a soft stillness, broken only by the distant sounds of life moving across the land. A child nearby begins to play with a small object, tossing it lightly from one hand to the other. After a few moments, they stop and place it on the ground beside them. Later, as the group moves, they return to that same spot. The child looks down and finds the object again. There is recognition, not just of place, but of past action. This is memory tied to location, but it also hints at something more. Continuity. The idea that something left behind can be returned to, that actions can extend beyond the moment in which they occur. Some interpretations suggest that this awareness may have been linked to the development of planning. If an individual can remember where something was left, they can return to it later. This opens the possibility of storing resources, even in the simplest way. Others point out that such behavior could remain limited, not fully expanding into long-term thinking for a long time. As you walk, you begin to notice how often the group revisits places. Not randomly, but with a kind of quiet intention. A cluster of trees where food was found before, a shaded area where rest felt safe, a path that feels familiar underfoot. The landscape is no longer just a space to move through. It is becoming a map, a memory. You feel how this changes everything, because when places are remembered, they gain meaning beyond the present. They become part of a larger pattern. The group moves toward a shallow stream once more, its gentle sound guiding them forward. You recognize it now, even before you see it. The water glimmers in the light, its surface shifting softly. Several individuals kneel to drink. Others remain standing, scanning the surroundings. There is a rhythm here that feels repeated. A return. You sit beside the water, letting your fingers touch the surface. It is cool, refreshing, familiar. You think about how this moment is not just happening. It has happened before, and it will likely happen again. That sense of repetition begins to settle into your mind, not in a structured way, but as a feeling, a quiet awareness that time is not just a single line of moments. It has patterns, cycles. The sun rises and sets. Hunger comes and goes. Places are left and returned to. Some researchers suggest that this awareness of cycles may have been one of the earliest forms of time perception. Long before calendars or clocks, humans may have recognized patterns in nature and used them to guide behavior. Others note that while such patterns are observable, the extent to which early humans understood them remains uncertain. As you stand and continue walking, you feel how this awareness begins to shape movement. There is less wandering, more direction. The group moves with a sense of familiarity, as if the land itself is guiding them. You notice another moment that stands out. One individual begins to gather more food than they immediately eat. They pause, looking around, then place some of it in a shaded area beneath a rock. Later, when the group returns to that area, the same individual retrieves it. This is small, but important. It suggests that the future is beginning to exist in the mind. Not far into the future, not in complex ways, but enough to influence action, enough to change behavior over long periods. Actions like this could lead to more advanced forms of planning, the ability to prepare for what has not yet happened, based on what has happened before. As the day continues, you feel how time begins to stretch slightly, not just a series of immediate moments, but something that connects past, present, and what might come next. The group returns once more to their resting place as evening approaches. The fire is rebuilt, its flames rising steadily, casting familiar light across the ground. You sit beside it, feeling the warmth settle into your body. Around you, the group gathers, and there is a sense now that this gathering is part of something repeated. A pattern, a cycle, not spoken, not defined, but felt. You notice how individuals seem to anticipate the return. Their movements toward the resting place feel more certain, more expected, as if the day itself has a shape. You listen to the sounds around you, the crackle of fire, the soft rhythm of breathing, the gentle settling of bodies, and within that calm, you sense the change continuing. Time is no longer just passing. It is being experienced, remembered, anticipated. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the warmth and quiet settle around you. And when you open them again, the fire still burns, the night still deepens, but the world now feels connected across moments, a thread stretching quietly through each day, linking what was, what is, and what may come. The sky above you feels wider this morning. You notice it almost immediately, even before the group begins to move. A pale blue stretches farther than before, uninterrupted, calm, and strangely inviting. The air's clear, carrying fewer scents, as if the world itself has paused for a moment. You rise slowly, brushing your hands against the ground, and follow the others as they begin their quiet walk. But today, something pulls your attention upward. At first, it is only a glance, a brief lift of the head, then it happens again. And again. You are not the only one. One individual stops and looks toward the sky, their gaze lingering longer than usual. Their body remains still, their attention held not by movement on the Alord, but by something above it. Clouds drift slowly across the open space, thin and soft, their shapes changing almost too gradually to notice. Light filters through them, shifting the brightness of the land in subtle waves. The group does not react in unison this time. Not everyone looks up, but enough do that it feels different. This is not about immediate survival. There is nothing in the sky to chase or avoid. And yet, attention is drawn there. You feel a quiet shift, because this kind of attention has no clear purpose. It simply exists. You walk forward, but your gaze lifts again, following the movement of a bird crossing the sky. Its wings move in slow, steady beats, carrying it across a space that feels endless. You wonder, just for a moment, how that must appear to them. Movement without contact, sound without source nearby, a presence that cannot be reached. In regions across the world, traces have been found of early human groups settling in open areas like this, where the sky would have been a constant presence, day after day, night after night. That wide expanse would have been part of their experience. Whether it carried meaning or remained simply a background to life is difficult to say. But here, you feel something beginning. The group moves across the land, their pace steady, their attention shifting between ground and distance. But now, every so often, someone looks up. Not quickly, not sharply, but with a lingering curiosity. You notice how this changes the rhythm. Moments of pause appear, not because something demands attention, but because something invites it. You pass through a stretch of low grass, the tips brushing lightly against your legs. The ground feels soft, slightly uneven, and warm beneath the rising sun. A faint shadow crosses the land. You look up again. A larger bird this time, gliding smoothly without effort. One individual stops completely, their gaze fixed on it. Their body remains still long after the bird has passed. That stillness feels important. It is not tied to action, not connected to need. It's simply attention held in place. You begin to realize that this may be one of the earliest steps toward wonder. Not yet questions, not yet meaning, but the ability to notice something beyond immediate survival and remain with it. You continue walking, your senses open to the subtle changes around you. The light shifts as clouds pass overhead, cooling the air slightly before the warmth returns. The group spreads out slightly, searching as they always do. But now, there are moments where movement slows without clear reason. A pause, a glance upward, a quiet stillness. You feel how this adds something new to the experience of the day. Space for the mind to move beyond the immediate. There is a small detail that catches your attention. One individual picks up a long, thin branch and holds it upright, aligning it briefly with something in the distance. It is not clear what they're doing, or if it has any purpose. After a moment, they lower it and continue walking. It might mean nothing, or it might be an early attempt to connect what is seen above with what is held below. Moments like this are difficult to interpret. They leave behind no clear trace, no lasting mark, only a possibility. You move toward a slightly elevated area, where the land rises gently. From here, the view stretches farther, revealing more of the landscape. The group pauses, not all at once but gradually, as if the view itself has drawn them to stillness. You stand there with them, looking out. The land spreads in soft patterns, light and shadow shifting slowly across it. In the distance, movement hints at other life. Small shapes crossing the open space. Above, the sky remains wide and quiet. You feel a calm settle into your body, a sense of scale, of something larger than the immediate. As the group begins to move again, the day continues as it always does, searching, gathering, walking. But now, there are moments woven into it, moments where attention lifts, where the world feels bigger, where something like curiosity begins to stretch beyond the ground beneath your feet. As the light softens toward evening, the group returns once more to the resting place. The fire is rebuilt, its flames rising gently, casting warm light into the growing darkness. You sit beside it, the warmth familiar, grounding. And yet, your gaze lifts again. Above the fire, the sky deepens into darker shades, and the first stars begin to appear. Small points of light, steady and distant. You notice how several individuals look up, their faces illuminated from below by firelight, their eyes reflecting something above. The stars do not move quickly. They remain silent, unreachable. You feel a quiet sense of stillness settle across the group. Not forced, not shared in a structured way, but present. Attention held on something that offers no immediate answer. You wonder what they see, what they feel, whether it's simply light in the dark or something more. It is impossible to know, but the moment itself carries weight, because attention has moved beyond the immediate world, beyond the ground, beyond the body, into something vast. The fire crackles softly, the warmth steady against your skin. The night deepens, and above you, the sky stretches endlessly, filled with quiet points of light. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the stillness settle, and when you open them again, the stars remain, unchanged, yet somehow everything feels slightly different, because now the world is not just what is near, it includes what is far, what is distant, what is beyond reach, and the mind has begun, ever so gently, to reach toward it. The stars fade slowly as morning returns, their quiet presence giving way to soft light that spreads across the land. You wake with a lingering sense of the night still in your mind, as if something from above has followed you into the day. The group rises as it always does, steady and unhurried. Movements feel familiar now, almost rhythmic. But something has settled beneath that rhythm, a kind of quiet depth. You walk with them, the ground cool beneath your feet, the air carrying the faint scent of earth and distant water. The sun lifts slowly, warming the land in gentle waves. At first, the day unfolds as it has before, searching, moving, watching. But then, you notice something that feels different. A small clearing ahead draws the group inward. Not because of food, not because of danger. There is no clear reason at all. And yet, they gather. You step into the space with them, the ground here slightly smoother, the air still. A few stones lie scattered, and at the centre, a patch of earth looks disturbed, as if it has been touched before. One individual kneel. They begin to move their hands across the ground, not searching, not digging for food, but pressing, shaping. Another watches, then joins. Soon, several members of the group are engaged in similar motions. You feel a quiet sense of curiosity rise within you. This is not tied to survival, not directly. There is no food here, no immediate purpose, and yet the activity continues. To understand this moment, it helps to consider how symbolic behavior may have begun. In various ancient sites, researchers have uncovered markings on surfaces, arrangements of objects, and traces of repeated actions that do not appear to serve a practical function. These behaviors suggest that early humans may have engaged in activities that carried meaning beyond immediate needs. What that meaning was remains uncertain, but the presence of the behavior itself is significant. You watch as one individual arranges small stones in a loose pattern. There is no clear shape, no defined structure, but the placement feels intentional. They pause, look, then adjust one of the stones. Another individual traces a line in the dirt with their finger, repeating the motion slowly. The line curves slightly, then fades as the ground shifts. They begin again. The repetition feels important, not random, but deliberate. You kneel down, placing your hand on the ground. It feels cool and soft, the texture shifting under your touch. You begin to see how these actions differ from those you have witnessed before. They are not about reacting to the world. They are about creating something within it, even if only briefly, even if only for the moment. A small detail draws your attention. One individual picks up a piece of wood and taps it gently against a stone. The sound is soft, rhythmic. They repeat it several times, then pause. Another listens, then repeats the action. The sound returns, again and again. You feel a quiet pattern forming. Not communication, not quite, but something shared. Some traces of early human sites contain objects that appear to have been modified in ways that do not improve their function, such as pieces of ochre that were shaped or marked. These findings hint at activities that may have held symbolic or expressive significance. As you sit in this clearing, it feels like you are witnessing something similar in its earliest form, an action that exists for its own sake, or perhaps for a meaning that is just beginning to take shape. You look around the group. Their movements are calm, focused. There is no urgency, no tension, just a quiet engagement with the space and with each other. It's a different kind of togetherness, not driven by survival, but by shared experience. You feel how this changes the atmosphere. The group is not just reacting to the environment. They are shaping it, leaving small marks, temporary patterns, but marks nonetheless. As the day continues, the activity fades gradually. Individuals rise, brushing their hands against their bodies, leaving the clearing behind. But something of it lingers, a sense that the space holds more than it did before. Even if the marks fade, even if the arrangement is disturbed, the act itself has occurred. And that matters. You walk with the group as they move on, the land stretching out before you once more. The familiar rhythm returns, searching, gathering, moving. But now there is a new layer beneath it, the memory of that clearing. The actions that took place there, moments that were not tied to immediate need. As the sun lowers, casting long shadows across the land, the group returns to their resting place. The fire is rebuilt, its light steady and warm. You sit beside it, feeling the heat settle into your hands. Around you, the group gathers, and for a moment, there is a stillness that feels different, a quiet awareness. You notice one individual picking up a small stone and placing it carefully near the fire. Another moves a piece of wood slightly, adjusting its position. These actions are simple, but they echo what you saw earlier, a shaping of the environment, a choice. You listen to the sounds around you, the crackle of fire, the soft rhythm of breath, the faint movement of bodies settling into place. And within that calm, you sense the change continuing. Meaning is beginning to form, not clearly, not fully, but present, in small actions, in repeated patterns, in moments that exist beyond immediate survival. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the warmth and quiet settle around you. And when you open them again, the fire still burns, the group still rests. But something has shifted. The world is no longer just a place to move through. It is becoming a place to shape, to mark, to experience in new ways. And somewhere within those quiet actions, something like meaning is beginning to take root. The fire fades into a soft glow as morning returns. Its warmth now something you carry within rather than feel directly. You rise slowly, the ground cool beneath your hands, and follow the group as they begin another day. There is a quiet steadiness to everything now, a rhythm that has grown more layered with each passing moment. And within that rhythm, something new begins to surface. You notice it first in the way individuals move apart. Not far, not disconnected, but with a subtle sense of distinction. As the group spreads across the landscape, searching and observing, you begin to sense that each person carries something slightly different, not just in movement, but in presence. One individual pauses more often, their attention drawn to details others pass by. Another moves more quickly, covering more ground, scanning broadly rather than closely. A third remains nearer to the group, their movements slower, more centered. These differences have always existed, but now they feel more visible, more defined. You walk among them, your awareness sharpening. It is as if the group is no longer just a single unit. It is becoming a collection of individuals. To understand this shift, it helps to consider how identity may begin to form. At some point, early humans likely started to recognize not only others as separate beings, but themselves as distinct as well. This does not happen all at once. It grows through repeated interactions, through memory, through awareness. You feel it in small moments. One individual approaches a familiar area and moves directly to a specific spot, as if guided by a personal memory. Another chooses a different path, exploring a new section of the land. Their choices diverge, not randomly, but in ways that feel connected to past experience. You notice how others respond. There is no resistance, no correction. Each movement is accepted. This suggests a growing tolerance for difference, a quiet recognition that each person may act in their own way. You pause for a moment, letting that idea settle, because this is something new, not just shared behavior, but individual variation within the group. The ground beneath you shifts as you move into a slightly rockier area. The stones feel firm underfoot, their surfaces worn smooth by time. The air carries a faint dryness, the scent of sun-warmed earth. A small moment draws your attention. One individual picks up a stone tool and uses it with a particular technique, one you have not seen often. Their movements are precise, controlled, shaped by practice. Nearby, another attempted the same action, but in a different way. The results are similar, but the methods differ. You feel a quiet sense of recognition. There is more than one way to act, more than one way to solve a problem. This suggests something important. The mind is not just learning, it is adapting, creating variation, Some traces left behind in ancient tool sites show subtle differences in how tools were made, even within the same group. These variations hint that individuals may have developed personal approaches, small differences that reflected their own experiences or preferences. As you walk, you begin to notice these differences more clearly. One person favours a certain type of object, another returns often to the same place. A third seems drawn to particular patterns of movement. Each behaviour is small, but together they form something larger, a sense of identity. Not defined, not named, but present. You feel it in the way individuals occupy space, in the way they approach tasks, in the way they respond to the world. There is a quiet moment that stands out. One individual sits slightly apart from the group, not isolated, but separate. They engage in their own activity, shaping an object, repeating a motion with steady focus. Others pass nearby. They do not interrupt. They do not draw them back in. The space is allowed. This suggests something new, a recognition of personal space, of individual activity, of self within group. It is subtle, but meaningful. You sit nearby, watching, feeling the calm of the moment settle into you. The air is warm now, the sun high above, casting steady light across the land. You think about how this shift changes everything, because once individuals are recognized as distinct, interactions become more complex. Choices matter. Actions carry personal patterns. The group is no longer just moving together. It is evolving into something more intricate. The day continues, the rhythm steady, the environment familiar, but now each action feels slightly more varied, more personal, more shaped by the individual. As the light begins to soften and the air cools, the group returns once more to the resting place. The fire is rebuilt, flames rising gently into the evening. You sit beside it, the warmth settling into your body. Around you, the group gathers, and you notice how they arrange themselves, not randomly, but with a kind of quiet familiarity. Certain individuals sit near each other, others take slightly different positions. There is no fixed pattern, but there are tendencies, preferences. You listen to the sounds around you, the crackle of fire, the soft rhythm of breathing, the occasional low sound passing between individuals, and within that calm, you sense the change continuing. The group remains connected, but individuality is beginning to emerge, softly, gently, like separate threads within a single weave. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the warmth and quiet settle around you. And when you open them again, the fire still burns, the night still deepens, but the space between individuals feels different now, not empty, but defined, each person carrying something of their own, something that belongs to them, even if they do not yet know it. The morning comes softly again, the light easing its way across the land as if it has all the time in the world. You wake with a quiet awareness that something has shifted, though it is difficult to name. The air feels the same, the ground feels the same, and yet your sense of the group has grown more detailed. You rise and walk with them, noticing how each person now seems to carry a kind of presence that lingers even when they are not directly in front of you. It is no longer just about what someone is doing. It is about who they are becoming. As the group spreads out across the land, you begin to notice how knowledge moves between them, not just through watching, but through intention. One individual pauses beside a cluster of stones, selecting one with care. They begin shaping it, tapping and turning, adjusting their movements with quiet precision. Another approaches and watches closely. This part is familiar, but what happens next feels different. The first individual slows down, not because they are unsure, but as if they are allowing the other to follow. Their movements become clearer, more visible. The second mirrors the action, not perfectly, but with growing accuracy. You feel a quiet realization settle in. This is no longer simple imitation. It is being guided. You kneel nearby, watching the exchange unfold. The sounds of stone meeting stone echo softly. blending with the distant calls of animals and the whisper of wind across the ground. There is a rhythm to the teaching, a pacing, a kind of patience that was not as clear before. The one who knows does not rush. The one who learns does not turn away. Between them, something is being passed, not just an action, but a way of doing. Across many ancient sites, clusters of tools show remarkable consistency in how they were shaped, even across generations. It suggests that knowledge did not fade with each individual, but was carried forward, refined, and shared in ways that left a lasting trace. As you watch, you begin to understand how that might happen, not through words, but through presence, through attention, through repetition guided by another. The group continues moving, the land opening into a wider stretch where the ground is dry and firm. Your steps feel lighter here, the surface steady beneath your feet. You notice another exchange. A younger individual struggles to carry something, a bundle of gathered plants slipping slightly from their grip. An older one pauses, watching for a moment, then adjusts the way the bundle is held. They do not take it. They do not complete the task. They simply show a better way. The younger one adjusts, the bundle steadies, and the movement continues. You feel the quiet importance of that moment. It is not just about success. It is about passing on knowledge in a way that allows it to continue. There is a sense now that the group holds more than the sum of its parts. Knowledge exists between them, shared, distributed. You walk alongside them, your awareness stretching across these interactions. The air is warm, the sun steady overhead, the sounds of life continuing in soft layers around you. There is a small detail that catches your attention. One individual carries a tool for a long stretch of time without using it. They hold it carefully, almost as if it matters, even when it is not needed. Later, when the group reaches a new area, that same tool is used immediately. It fits the task. It has been kept for a reason. This suggests a growing sense of purpose that extends beyond the immediate moment, an understanding that what is not needed now may be needed later. You feel how this connects to everything you have seen. Memory, attention, shared learning, each layer building towards something more stable. The group pauses near a familiar place, a slight dip in the ground where the air feels cooler. Several individuals settle briefly, their movements calm and unhurried. You sit with them, noticing how their positions now reflect more than just comfort. There is familiarity in who sits near whom, not fixed, not rigid, but present, a kind of quiet pattern that has formed over time. You think about how relationships might begin in this way, not through words, but through repeated proximity, shared moments, recognition. The day moves gently forward, the light beginning to soften as the sun lowers. The group resumes its movement, returning once more toward the resting place. The fire is rebuilt as it always is, its flames rising steadily into the evening. You sit beside it, feeling the warmth settle into your hands. Around you, the group gathers, and now, the space between them feels filled with something invisible. Knowledge, experience, memory shared across individuals. You watch as one person picks up a tool and uses it in a way you've seen before. Another watches, then repeats the action. The pattern continues, not just within a single moment, but across time, across days. You listen to the quiet sounds around you, the steady crackle of fire, the soft rhythm of breathing, the faint movements of bodies settling into place. And within that calm, you sense the change continuing. Knowledge is no longer fragile. It is beginning to persist, to move from one mind to another, to outlast the moment in which it is formed. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the warmth and stillness settle around you. And when you open them again, the fire still burns, the night still deepens, but something within the group has become more stable, more enduring, not just actions, but ways of thinking, ways of doing, carried quietly from one person to another. The fire has burned low again by morning, leaving behind a quiet circle of warmth in the earth. You wake slowly, your body settling into the familiar rhythm of rising with the light. Around you, the group begins to move, their actions steady and unhurried. But today, there is something new within that steady flow, something less visible, more internal. As you walk with them, you begin to notice it in the spaces between actions, in the pauses, in the moments where nothing is happening outwardly, but something seems to be forming within. One individual stops near a fallen branch, their hand hovering above it. They do not touch it immediately. Instead, they remain still, their gaze fixed on the object as if considering it. Then, slowly, they pick it up and use it in a way that feels slightly different from before. You feel a quiet sense of recognition. This is not just reaction, it is imagination. To understand this shift, it helps to think about what imagination allows. It creates the ability to picture something that is not yet real, to consider possibilities before acting on them. This is a subtle change, but a powerful one. You continue walking, your awareness drawn to these quiet moments of pause. They appear more often now. A person looks at a stone, then at another, as if comparing them before choosing one. Another glances toward a distant area, then changes direction without any obvious immediate reason. These actions feel guided by something unseen. Not memory alone, but something like anticipation. Across different regions, evidence has been uncovered of tools that were shaped in stages, sometimes far from where they were eventually used. This suggests that individuals may have been carrying ideas of future use in their minds, shaping objects in advance for situations that had not yet arrived. As you move with the group, you begin to sense how that might feel, to carry not just an object, but an idea of its use. You kneel near a cluster of stones, picking one up and turning it in your hand. It feels solid, familiar. But now, your mind does something new. You imagine what it could become, not just what it is. That shift feels quiet, but profound. Nearby, one individual begins arranging objects in a way that does not directly relate to any immediate task. They place a stone here, a branch there, adjusting their positions slightly. Then they pause, looking, as if comparing what they see to something in their mind. They adjust again. This act feels different from the earlier patterns you observed. There is a sense of internal reference, something guiding the action from within. Some researchers suggest that imagination may have developed gradually alongside memory and attention, allowing early humans to simulate possible outcomes before acting. Others note that while such behaviors hint at imagination, it is difficult to know how fully formed this ability was. As you watch, it feels like something new is unfolding. The mind is beginning to create, not just respond. The group continues moving, the land stretching out before you in familiar patterns of grass, stone, and distant trees. The air is warm, carrying the steady presence of life around you. You notice how often individuals now pause before acting. A brief stillness, a moment of internal movement, then action. This creates a new rhythm, less immediate, more considered. There is a small detail that catches your attention. One individual picks up a tool, then sets it down again without using it. They look around, then choose a different object instead. The decision feels deliberate, as if one possibility has been considered and set aside in favor of another. This is choice shaped by imagination, the ability to think beyond the immediate action. You feel how this connects to everything you have seen so far. Memory allows the past to influence the present. Attention allows focus to remain. Shared knowledge spreads understanding across the group. And now, imagination opens the door to what could be. You walk with the group as the day continues, the sun steady overhead, the ground warm beneath your feet. The environment feels the same, but the way it is experienced is changing. Objects are no longer just what they are what they could become. Actions are no longer just responses, they are possibilities. As the light begins to soften, the group makes its way back once more to the resting place. The fire is rebuilt, flames rising gently into the evening air. You sit beside it, feeling the warmth settle into your body. Around you, the group gathers, And now there is a quiet stillness that feels different from before. Not empty, but full, as if something is happening beneath the surface. You notice one individual staring into the fire, their gaze steady, unmoving. The flames shift and flicker, but their attention remains fixed. It is not clear what they're seeing, but it feels like more than just light. Perhaps they are holding an image, a memory, possibility. You cannot know, but the moment carries weight. You listen to the sounds around you, the crackle of fire, the soft rhythm of breathing, the faint movement of body settling into place. And within that calm, you sense the change continuing. The mind is beginning to move beyond what is present, to imagine, to consider, to create possibilities that do not yet exist. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the warmth and quiet settle around you. And when you open them again, the fire still burns, the night still deepens. But the world feels slightly larger, not because it has changed, but because the mind within it has begun to expand. Reaching quietly into what could be, the fire's glow fades gently into the pale light of morning, and you wake with a lingering sense that something unseen has been growing through the night. The air feels still, almost suspended, as if the world is holding its breath before the day begins. You rise and follow the group, your steps soft against the ground. The rhythm continues as it always has, searching, moving, watching. But today, there is something beneath that rhythm, a quiet tension, not from the outside, but from within. As you walk, you begin to notice it in the way individuals pause, not just to observe, but to hesitate. One person stops near a patch of tall grass. Their body stiffens slightly, their gaze fixed on something you cannot yet see. They do not move forward. They wait. Then, slowly, they step back. The rest of the group adjusts, giving space without needing to understand fully why. You look closer and notice a faint movement in the grass. Subtle, almost invisible, but enough to change behavior. This moment feels different from earlier reactions to danger. It is not immediate, not sharp. It carries a layer of uncertainty, possibility rather than a clear threat. To understand this shift, it helps to think about how awareness of the unknown begins to form. At some point, early humans likely started to respond not only to what was directly present, but to what might be present. This creates a new kind of experience, one that is not grounded in certainty, but in possibility. You feel it settle into the atmosphere. A slight caution, a quiet awareness that something unseen could exist just beyond perception. The group moves carefully through the area, their steps slower, their attention more focused. The moment passes without incident, but the feeling lingers. You continue walking, noticing how this sense of uncertainty appears again in small ways. An individual glances toward a shadow and hesitates before approaching. Another pauses when a sound echoes faintly in the distance, even though its source is unclear. These are not direct responses. They are shaped by what might be. Across long stretches of time, the ability to imagine unseen possibilities may have offered an advantage. Those who anticipated danger, even without clear evidence, may have been more likely to avoid it. But this also introduces something new, a form of fear that is not tied to immediate reality. You feel it as a quiet tension beneath the surface, not overwhelming, not constant, but present, a small tightening in the body. A pause in movement, the mind reaching beyond what is known. The group moves into a more open area, where the land stretches wide and visibility improves. The tension softens slightly, replaced by a steadier rhythm of movement, but the sense of possibility remains. You notice how individuals now scan not just for what is there, but for what could be there. Their gaze moves differently, more searching, more aware of absence as well as presence. There is a small moment that stands out. One individual picks up a stone and holds it tightly for a brief time, even though there is no immediate use for it. Then they set it down again. The action feels connected to something internal, a readiness, a preparation for something that has not happened. It is difficult to know exactly what drives this behavior, but it feels linked to the idea of uncertainty, the need to be ready, to anticipate. In many environments, early humans faced unpredictable conditions, sudden changes, hidden dangers, shifting resources. Living within such uncertainty may have encouraged the development of cautious behavior and heightened awareness. As you walk, you feel how this shapes the group. They are no longer just reacting. They are anticipating. Even in the absence of clear signals, the day continues, the sun rising higher, warming the air. The landscape remains familiar, but your experience of it feels slightly altered. Every shadow holds a possibility. Every sound carries a question. You pause for a moment, letting that awareness settle. It does not feel overwhelming, but it adds depth, a layer of thought that did not exist before. As the group moves toward a familiar water source, you notice how their approach has changed. They slow down before reaching it, scanning the area more carefully. Even though they have been here before, even though it has been safe, there is no assumption of safety, only awareness. This suggests a growing understanding that the world is not fixed, that it can change, that what was safe before may not always be safe again. This idea feels important because it introduces uncertainty into memory. Not everything can be relied upon. Not everything can be predicted. You sit by the water, watching the surface ripple gently. The reflections shift and break, never staying the same for long. It feels like a quiet mirror of what is happening within the mind. As the day fades, the group returns once more to the resting place. The fire is rebuilt, its light steady and reassuring. You sit beside it, feeling the warmth against your hands. Around you, the group gathers more closely than before. There is a sense of comfort in proximity. Perhaps because the world beyond feels less certain, you notice how individuals sit nearer to one another, their positions reflecting a subtle need for closeness. The fire becomes more than warmth. It becomes reassurance, a stable point in a shifting world. You listen to the sounds around you, the crackle of wood, the steady rhythm of breathing, the soft movements of bodies settling into place. And within that calm, you sense the change continuing. The mind is reaching into the unknown, imagining possibilities, preparing for what might be, but with that comes something new, a quiet form of unease. Not overwhelming, but present. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the warmth and stillness settle around you. And when you open them again, the fire still burns, the night still deepens, but the world feels slightly less certain, not less safe, but more complex, filled not just with what is, but with what could be, and the mind has begun, quietly, to live within that space. The night lingers a little longer this time, as if reluctant to give way to the day. When you open your eyes, the sky is still dim, a soft grey stretching quietly above you. The fire has settled into faint embers, its warmth barely reaching the surface of the ground. You remain still for a moment, listening. The world is quiet, but not empty. There is something beneath the stillness, a kind of waiting. As the first light begins to grow, the group stirs around you. Bodies shift, slow movements returning as the rhythm of the day begins again. You rise with them, your steps soft, your awareness already alert. And today, something changes. Not in what they do, but in how they seem to pause before doing it. You walk across the open ground, the air cool against your skin, carrying the faint scent of dry grass and distant water. The group spreads out, moving as they always have, scanning, searching, adjusting. But now you begin to notice moments that feel different, moments where the mind seems to reach beyond action. One individual stops completely, their gaze fixed on something small on the ground. It is just a stone, nothing unusual at first glance. They pick it up, turn it slowly. Then they look at it again, longer this time. You feel a quiet shift. This is not just observation. It is something deeper, a kind of questioning, though no words exist for it. The person tilts the head slightly, as if trying to understand something that is not immediately clear. Then they set the stone down, but the moment lingers, You continue walking, your attention now drawn to these pauses. They appear again and again. A person hears a distant sound and stops, not just reacting, but holding still as if listening for something more. Another looks at a familiar place, then glances away, then looks back again, as if comparing what they see to something in their mind. These are not actions driven purely by need. They feel like beginnings, the earliest traces of asking why. The ground beneath your feet feels firmer as you move into a slightly elevated area. The sun rises slowly, warming the land in gentle layers. Shadows stretch and shift, soft and quiet. You notice how often individuals now linger in thought. Not long, but long enough to feel different. There is a moment that stands out. One individual picks up a tool and begins to use it, then stops halfway through. They hold it still, looking at the object they are working on. Then they adjust their approach, not because the first way failed, but as if considering another option. You feel a quiet realization settle in. The mind is no longer just reacting or remembering. It is comparing, exploring possibilities. Even without language, something like a question is forming. Across ancient sites, there are traces of repeated actions that seem to change slightly over time. Tools shaped in new ways, patterns that shift gradually, as if someone, somewhere, tried something different and held on to it. These changes do not appear suddenly. They emerge slowly, like this. You walk alongside the group, your awareness deepening with each step. The air feels warmer now, the sun higher, the sounds of life continuing in steady rhythm. But beneath it all, there is a sense of quiet movement within the mind, a reaching, a searching. One individual kneels near a patch of earth, touching the surface gently. They press their fingers into the soil, then lift them, examining the texture. They do it again and again, not because it leads to food, not because it solves a problem, but because they seem to be exploring. You sit nearby, watching, feeling the stillness settle into you. This kind of action feels new, not directed, not required, just done. You begin to understand how this could lead to something much larger, because once the mind begins to explore without immediate need, it opens the door to endless possibility. The group continues moving, but now the rhythm feels different, less urgent, more layered. There is space within each moment, space for thought, even if that thought cannot yet be expressed. There is a small detail that catches your attention. One individual looks at another, holding their gaze for a moment longer than usual. Then they make a soft sound. The other responds, but not immediately. There is a pause, a delay, as if the response is being considered. Then it comes. The exchange feels different from before. Not just reaction, but something closer to choice. You feel a quiet sense of depth in that moment, because it suggests that the mind is beginning to hold multiple possibilities and select between them. The day continues, the light softening as the sun begins to lower. The group moves back toward the resting place, their steps steady, their presence calm. The fire is rebuilt, its glow returning as the sky darkens. You sit beside it, feeling the warmth spread gently through your body. Around you, the group gathers, and now the quiet feels different. Not empty, but full of something unseen. You notice how individuals sit in stillness more often. Their gaze is drifting, their attention not always fixed on something specific. It is as if the mind has begun to wander, to move beyond what is directly in front of it. You listen to the sounds around you, the crackle of fire, the soft rhythm of breathing, the faint movement of bodies settling into rest. And within that calm, you sense the change continuing. The first questions have begun to form, not spoken, not fully understood, but present, a quiet reaching beyond the immediate. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the warmth and stillness settle around you. And when you open them again, the fire still burns, the night stretches wide above you. But something within the mind has shifted. It no longer simply exists within the world. It is beginning to wonder about it. The fire burns low as the night gives way to another quiet morning. You wake to the faint glow of light touching the edges of the land, the air cool and still around you. The group begins to stir, their movements gentle, unhurried, as if the rhythm of waking has become something shared. You sit for a moment before standing, your hand resting briefly on the ground where warmth still lingers. There is a sense now that each day carries traces of the ones before it, not just in memory, but in the way the world feels. As you walk with the group, your attention drifts toward the ground more often, not searching for food, not scanning for danger, but noticing small marks, faint patterns. You see a series of lines pressed into the soil, shallow and uneven. At first, they seem accidental, the result of movement or shifting earth. But as you look closer, you notice something different. The lines repeat, not perfectly, but with intention. One individual kneels nearby, their fingers moving slowly across the ground. They trace a line, then another, pressing lightly into the soft soil. They pause, looking at what they have made, then adjust the shape slightly. You feel a quiet stillness settle in your chest. This is not an accident. It is a mark. The group does not gather around it. There is no clear reaction, but one or two individuals glance toward the lines, their attention lingering just a little longer than before. You kneel closer, your hand hovering above the pattern. The soil is soft, cool beneath your fingertips. You trace one of the lines gently, feeling its shallow groove. It carries no immediate use. It does not feed. It does not protect. And yet it exists. Across different parts of the world, long before writing ever appeared, people left marks like these, simple engravings, repeated patterns, lines that seem to carry some kind of intention, even if their exact meaning is lost. Here, in this quiet moment, you're seeing something like that beginning. The individual traces another line, then another. Their movements are slow, deliberate, almost careful. They pause often, looking at the ground, then at their hand, as if comparing what they see to something held inside. You begin to sense what this might be, an attempt to hold something outside the mind, to leave a trace. You sit there, watching, feeling the quiet importance of the moment, because until now, everything has existed only within action, within memory, within shared experience. But this is different. This remains, even if only for a short time, even if it fades. The group continues moving slowly around the area, some searching, others resting. But every so often, someone passes by the markings and glances down. The attention is brief, but it happens. You wonder what they see. Do they recognize the repetition? Do they feel that it means something? There is no clear answer, but the act itself feels significant. The individual who made the marks rises and steps away, leaving the lines behind. The ground holds them quietly, their shape visible in the soft light. You follow the group as they begin to move again, but your mind stays with that moment. The idea of leaving something behind, of shaping the world in a way that lasts beyond the action. The day continues, the sun rising higher, warming the land. The air feels calm, steady, carrying the familiar sounds of life. You notice more moments like this now, small interactions with the environment that do not serve an immediate purpose. A stone placed in a particular position, a pattern traced in dust, a repeated motion that leaves a visible result. Each one is simple, but together they suggest something growing, a desire to shape, to express, to leave something behind. As the group pauses near a shaded area, you sit down again, your hand resting on the ground. The texture feels familiar, but now you're more aware of how easily it can be changed. A line drawn, a mark pressed, a pattern formed. You try it yourself, tracing a small shape with your finger. It feels natural, almost inevitable. You look at it for a moment, then brush it away. Gone, but the act remains in your mind. That might be the beginning of something important, because once the mind realizes it can leave marks, it begins to see the world differently. not just as something to move through, but as something to shape and remember. The group rises again as the light begins to soften, the day slowly giving way to evening. You walk with them back toward the resting place, your awareness lingering on the ground beneath your feet. Every step leaves a trace. Every movement shapes the space. The fire is rebuilt once more, its glow steady and warm. You sit beside it, the heat settling into your hands. Around you, the group gathers, and you notice one individual reach down, drawing a small line in the dirt near the fire. Then another. The pattern is simple, but it echoes what you saw earlier, a quiet repetition. You watch as the lines catch the light, their shallow grooves visible in the flicker of the flames. No one speaks, no one explains, but the act continues. You listen to the sounds around you, the crackle of fire, the soft rhythm of breathing, the faint movement of bodies settling into place. And within that calm, you sense the change continuing. The world is beginning to hold traces of the mind, marks, patterns, signs that something has been thought. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the warmth and stillness settle around you. And when you open them again, the fire still burns, the night deepens. But the ground now carries more than just footprints. It carries the first quiet signs of expression, something left behind, something that, even as it fades, suggests that the mind is beginning to reach beyond itself. The morning feels softer today, as if the world itself has grown quieter overnight. You wake to a pale wash of light, the ground cool beneath your hand, the last traces of the fire fading into stillness. Around you, the group begins to move again, their presence calm, familiar, and now somehow more layered than before. You stand and follow, your steps slow, your attention drifting not just to what is around you, but to what passes between you and others. There is a sense now that something fragile is forming, not just in actions, but in connection. As the group spreads out, you begin to notice how sounds move between them. These are not the sharp calls of alertness you heard before, nor the soft tones tied directly to objects or places. They feel more shaped, more consistent. One individual makes a short sound while reaching toward something. Another responds with a similar sound, though not exactly the same. There is a slight variation, but the pattern feels connected. You pause, listening more carefully. The sound comes again, and again, not identical each time, but close enough to feel intentional. This feels different from earlier vocalizations. There is a kind of structure emerging, not fixed, not stable, but present. You walk closer, your senses focused on these exchanges. The air is warm, carrying faint scents of earth and plant life, the ground soft beneath your feet. A small group gathers near a patch of plants. One person makes a sound while pointing. Another repeats a similar sound, then begins gathering. The pattern continues. Sound, response, action. You feel a quiet recognition. This is not yet language, but it is moving in that direction. Across long stretches of time, changes in the human body allowed for greater control over sound. The throat, tongue, and mouth gradually adapted, making it possible to produce a wider range of tones. These changes did not appear all at once. They unfolded slowly, shaping the way communication could develop. Here, you sense the early result of that process, sounds that carry more consistency, more shared meaning. You notice how individuals now seem to expect certain sounds in certain situations. When the sound is made, attention shifts more quickly. Response is more aligned. It is as if the group is beginning to build a shared system. Not formal, not complete, but growing. You continue walking, your awareness drawn to each exchange. The sounds vary slightly between individuals, but there is a clear attempt to match, to repeat, to stay within a shared pattern. This effort feels important, because it suggests a desire to be understood, and to understand. There is a moment that stands out. One individual makes a sound that is slightly different from the usual pattern. Another pauses, their head tilting slightly, as if noticing the difference. They respond with a similar variation. Then both return to the more familiar sound. You feel a quiet sense of experimentation in that moment, testing, adjusting, finding what works. This suggests that communication is no longer fixed to simple associations. It is becoming flexible, adaptable. You move through a stretch of open land, the sky wide above, the sun steady in its place. The group remains loosely connected, their movements guided not only by sight and gesture, but increasingly by sound. There is a small detail that catches your attention. One individual makes a soft sound even when no one is immediately nearby. It is quiet, almost like a repetition, as if practicing. Then, when another approaches, the sound is made again, more directed this time. This suggests something new. The sound exists beyond the immediate interaction. It can be held, repeated, refined. You feel how this connects to everything that has come before. Memory allows sounds to be remembered. Shared attention allows them to be recognized. Imagination allows variation. And now, repetition begins to shape them into something more stable. The day continues, the light shifting slowly as the sun moves across the sky. The group gathers and spreads, their rhythm steady but now layered with these new exchanges. You begin to feel how communication is changing the group itself. Movements are more coordinated, responses more aligned. There is less delay between action and reaction. The space between individuals feels more connected. As the light begins to fade, the group returns once more to the resting place. The fire is rebuilt, its glow steady and warm. You sit beside it, feeling the heat settle into your hands. Round you, the group gathers more closely, and the sounds continue. Soft, rhythmic, shared. You listen carefully. There is a pattern now, faint but present. Certain sounds appear more often. Others fade. The group seems to settle into these patterns without needing to think about them. You notice how individuals respond more quickly now when certain sounds are made. The connection between sound and action feels stronger, more reliable. You look around the circle, watching faces illuminated by the firelight, mouths moving, sounds forming, connection strengthening. It is still fragile, still incomplete, but it is there. The beginning of something that will one day become language. You listen to the crackle of the fire, the soft rhythm of breathing, the gentle flow of sound passing between individuals. And within that calm, you sense the change continuing. The mind is no longer alone. It is beginning to reach outward, to share, to connect through sound. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the warmth and quiet settle around you. And when you open them again, the fire still burns, the night deepens, but the silence has changed. It is no longer empty. It carries the first fragile threads of language. The morning unfolds gently, as if the world itself is easing into awareness alongside you. Light filters across the ground in soft layers, warming the cool surface where you slept. You rise slowly, your body adjusting to the quiet rhythm that has now become familiar. But something about the group feels different again. Not in any obvious way, more like a subtle widening. As you begin to walk with them, you notice how individuals now seem more aware of their place among others. Their movements are no longer just guided by the environment or immediate needs. There is a sense of positioning, of relation. You feel it in the way they move closer or farther from one another. Not randomly, but with quiet intention. One individual slows down, allowing another to pass ahead. There is no urgency, no visible signal, just a subtle adjustment. Another remains slightly behind the group, watching, as if holding a different role in the movement. You begin to understand that the group is no longer just moving together. It is organizing itself. This organization is not fixed or formal. It shifts with the moment. But it is present. A loose structure begins to form. You walk through a stretch of low vegetation, the ground soft beneath your feet. The air carries a faint warmth, mixed with the earthy scent of plants and soil. Ahead, a few individuals begin searching in a more focused way. Others remain nearby, watching the surroundings. There is a balance between action and awareness. It feels coordinated, even without clear instruction, in places where ancient remains have been studied. There are signs that groups often divided tasks in simple ways. Some individuals focused on gathering or processing food, while others maintained awareness of the environment. These patterns are not written anywhere, but they leave traces in how tools are found and how spaces are used. As you watch the group now, you can sense something similar, not defined, but emerging, a natural distribution of attention. You notice how one individual seems to move more often along the edges of the group, scanning the distance. Another stays near the center, working steadily with objects found on the ground. These differences are not assigned. They are simply taken on and accepted. There is a moment that draws your attention. A small animal moves quickly through the grass. Several individuals react, but not all in the same way. One moves forward, another steps back. A third remains still, watching. Their responses vary, but together they create a broader awareness, a wider coverage of the moment. You feel a quiet sense of recognition. This variation strengthens the group. It allows for more possibilities, more ways to respond. You continue walking, the sun rising higher, the light growing brighter. The world feels open and steady, the sounds of life continuing in soft layers around you. There is a small detail that stands out. One individual seems to follow another more closely than the rest, not directly copying, but staying within a similar path, watching their actions with consistent attention. Over time, this closeness remains. It is not forced, but repeated. You begin to sense that relationships are forming, not just general connection within the group, but specific connections between individuals. These connections are quiet, unspoken, but they shape movement. They influence where people stand, how they move, how they respond. You feel how this adds another layer to the group. It is no longer just a collection of individuals within a shared space. It is a network, a web of connections, some stronger than others. The group pauses near a familiar area, a place where the ground dips slightly and the air feels cooler. Several individuals settle briefly, their movements calm. You sit among them, noticing how the arrangement now feels less random. Certain individuals sit near each other again. Not always, but often. There is a pattern forming, a quiet preference. You think about how this might grow over time, how repeated proximity could lead to stronger bonds, how those bonds might influence behavior. There is no clear boundary yet, no defined roles, but the beginnings are there. The day continues, the rhythm steady but now layered with these subtle shifts. Movement feels more organized, more connected, not in a rigid way, but in a flexible, flowing structure. As the light begins to soften, the group moves back toward the resting place. The fire is rebuilt, its glow steady and warm. You sit beside it, feeling the heat settle into your hands. Around you, the group gathers, and the arrangement feels familiar. Not exactly the same as before, but similar enough to notice. You watch as individuals take their places, some closer to the fire, others slightly farther back. The spacing feels intentional, though no one directs it. There is a quiet order, a gentle structure that holds the group together. You listen to the sounds around you, the crackle of fire, the soft rhythm of breathing, the faint movement of bodies settling into rest. And within that calm, you sense the change continuing. The group is becoming more than a shared presence. It is becoming organized, not through rules, but through relationships, through repeated patterns of movement and interaction. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the warmth and stillness settle around you. And when you open them again, the fire still burns, the night deepens, but the group feels different, not just together, but connected in a more intricate way. A quiet structure forming beneath the surface, guiding movement, shaping behavior, and slowly, almost invisibly, building something that will one day become society. The fire fades into a soft glow as morning arrives, and you wake with a quiet sense that something important is nearing its edge. The air feels calm, almost suspended, as if the world is holding a breath it has not yet released. You rise slowly, following the group as they begin their familiar movement across the land. The ground feels steady beneath your feet, the light spreading gently across everything you see. But now, there is something else, a subtle awareness that seems to turn inward. You notice it in a moment so small it almost slips past you. One individual pauses near a shallow pool of water. They lean forward, their reflection shimmering faintly beneath them. The surface moves gently, distorting the image, breaking it into fragments of light. They remain there, looking, not just glancing, not just noticing, but holding their gaze. You feel a quiet stillness settle into your chest. This moment feels different from all the others, because it is not about the world, it is about the self. The individual moves their hand through the water, watching as the reflection breaks and reforms. They pause again, their head tilting slightly, as if trying to understand what they are seeing. There is no recognition in the way you would know it, no clear awareness, but something is happening, something new. You step closer, watching carefully. The individual touches their own face, then looks back at the water. The connection is not clear, but the action repeats. Touch, look, pause. It is a quiet loop, a beginning. To understand why this matters, consider how self-awareness may emerge. At some point, the mind begins to recognize itself as separate from the world, not just as a body moving through space, but as something that exists within it. This is not a sudden realization. It grows slowly, through moments like this. You continue walking with the group, your awareness now drawn inward as much as outward. The environment remains the same, the ground beneath you, the air around you, the distant sounds of life continuing. But the experience of it feels deeper. You notice how individuals now seem to carry a sense of themselves as distinct beings, not just in how they move, but in how they respond. One person hesitates before taking an object that another is holding, as if aware of the boundary between them. Another adjusts their position when someone moves too close, not just reacting, but maintaining space. These are small actions, but they suggest something larger, an awareness of self and other, separate, distinct. In some early burial sites, bodies were placed carefully, sometimes with objects arranged beside them. This suggests that at some point, humans began to see individuals as more than just physical beings. There was a sense that something about them mattered even after they were gone. You feel how that idea might begin here, not in rituals yet, but in awareness. The group moves through a familiar area, their rhythm steady. But now, there is a subtle difference in how individuals carry themselves, a slight sense of presence, of being. You notice how one individual sits apart for a moment, not withdrawn, but reflective. Their gaze drifts, not fixed on any particular object. It feels like a moment of inward attention, a pause not for the world, but for themselves. You sit nearby, feeling the quiet settle into you. The air is warm, the light steady, the sounds of life continuing in gentle patterns. And within that calm, something is forming, a sense of identity, not named, not defined, but present. You think about how this changes everything, because once the self is recognized, even in the smallest way, the world is no longer experienced in the same way. It becomes something seen from a perspective, a point of view. There is a moment that stands out. Two individuals reach for the same object at the same time. Their hands meet briefly, then one pulls back, not quickly, not in fear, but in a quiet acknowledgement, as if aware of the other's intention. This moment feels different from earlier interactions. It carries a sense of choice, of awareness. You feel the quiet depth of that. The day continues, the sun rising higher, the ground warm beneath your feet. The group moves, searches, gathers, their rhythm steady. But beneath that rhythm, the mind is shifting, turning inward, recognizing itself. As the light softens and the group returns once more to the resting place, the fire is rebuilt, its glow steady and warm. You sit beside it, feeling the heat settle into your hands. Around you, the group gathers. And now the space feels different, not just shared, but filled with individual presence. Each person carrying something of their own, a sense of self. You look around the circle, watching faces lit by the firelight, each one distinct, each one separate, and yet connected. You listen to the sounds around you, the crackle of fire, the soft rhythm of breathing, the faint movements of bodies settling into rest. And within that calm, you sense the shift reaching its edge. The mind has turned inward. It has begun to recognize itself. Not fully, not clearly, but enough to change everything that comes after. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the warmth and stillness settle around you. And when you open them again, the fire still burns, the night deepens, but the world is no longer just a place to move through. It is a place experienced by a self, a mind that knows in some quiet way that it exists. The morning feels different in a way that is difficult to describe. Nothing in the landscape has changed. The same soft light spreads across the ground. The same quiet air brushes against your skin. The group rises as it always has, their movement steady, familiar, and yet something has settled beneath it all, a quiet awareness that lingers. As you begin walking with them, you notice it immediately. The way individuals carry themselves feels more defined, not just moving through the world, but existing within it. You sense it in the way one person pauses, looking out across the open land. Their gaze holds, not just scanning for movement, but taking in the space itself. It feels like more than observation. It feels like recognition. You walk beside them, your attention drawn to these subtle shifts. The ground beneath your feet feels solid, the air warm as the sun begins to rise higher. The sounds of life continue around you, soft and steady. But within the group, something has changed. There is a sense now that each individual knows they are here, not in words, not in thoughts that can be spoken, but in a quiet internal way. You notice how one person touches their chest briefly, then looks outward again. The gesture is small, almost instinctive, but it lingers in your mind, as if the boundary between self and world is being explored. You think about how this awareness might grow, not all at once, but through moments like this, repeated, felt, carried forward. The group moves into a wide, open space where the horizon stretches far in every direction. The sky feels endless above you, the land steady beneath you. One individual stops again, turning slowly in place. They look outward, then inward. Their posture shifts slightly, as if adjusting to something new. You feel a quiet stillness settle in the moment, because this is different from everything that has come before. This is not just awareness of others, not just memory or imagination. This is awareness of being, of existing. Across time, there are traces that suggest humans began to see themselves as more than just bodies. The way objects were kept, the way spaces were used, the way individuals were treated even after death, all point toward a growing sense that each person held a kind of presence that mattered. You feel how that presence might begin here, in moments of stillness, in pauses that turn inward. The group continues moving, but now their actions feel slightly more deliberate. There is less wandering, more intention. You notice how individuals now seem to make choices that reflect something personal. One person chooses a path that leads slightly away from the group, then returns. Another lingers longer in one place, as if drawn by something only they feel. These differences are no longer just variations. They feel like expressions. You walk alongside them, your awareness deepening with each step. The air is warm, the light steady, the world calm. And yet, within that calm, the mind has changed. There is a small moment that stands out. Two individuals sit near each other, their bodies relaxed, their movements slow. One looks at the other, holding their gaze for a brief moment. Then they look away, but the connection remains. It is as if they recognize each other, not just as part of the group, but as separate beings. You feel a quiet sense of depth in that, because recognition now moves in two directions, outward and inward. You continue walking, the land stretching out before you. The group remains connected, but each person carries their own presence more clearly. There is a balance now between self and group, between individuality and connection. It feels stable, not complete, but formed enough to hold. The day moves gently forward, the light softening as the sun begins to lower. The group returns once more to the resting place. The fire is rebuilt, its glow steady and warm. You sit beside it, feeling the heat settle into your hands. Around you, the group gathers, and the circle feels different now. Each person sits within it, not just as part of a whole, but as themselves. You look around, watching faces lit by the firelight, each one distinct, each one carrying something unseen, a sense of self. You listen to the sounds around you, the crackle of fire, the soft rhythm of breathing, the faint movements of bodies settling into rest. And within that calm, you sense the change settling in. The mind has crossed a threshold. It knows in some quiet way that it exists, and that knowledge changes everything. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the warmth and stillness settle around you. And when you open them again, the fire still burns, the night stretches wide above you. But the world is no longer just a place. It is something experienced from within, through a self, a presence that feels, notices, remembers, and now, quietly, understands that it is there. The fire settles into a quiet glow as morning approaches, its warmth softer now, more like a memory than a presence. You wake slowly, your body still, your mind lingering in that space between sleep and awareness. Something has changed again, not suddenly, not sharply, but in a way that feels deeper than before. You rise and follow the group, your steps gentle against the ground. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of earth and distant water. The light spreads slowly, revealing the familiar shapes of the land. And yet, the world feels different now, not because it has changed, but because you are aware of it in a new way. As you walk, you notice it in the way individuals pause, not just to observe, not just to consider, but to feel. One person stops, so their body still, their gaze unfocused for a moment. They are not looking at anything in particular. They are simply there. You feel a quiet sense of recognition. This is something new. The mind is not only aware of the world, it is aware of itself within it. You continue walking, your awareness deepening with each step. The ground feels firm beneath your feet, the air warm as the sun rises higher. But within that steady world, something more fragile has emerged. A kind of inner experience. You notice how one individual hesitates before joining the group, their posture slightly withdrawn. There is no clear reason for it, nothing in the environment that demands caution, and yet they pause, as if feeling something that cannot be seen. You sense it in yourself as well, a quiet awareness of presence, of being, and with that awareness, something else begins to appear, a faint sense of unease, not strong, not overwhelming, but present. The group moves through a familiar area, the ground soft beneath your feet, the air filled with gentle sounds of life. Everything appears as it has before, but now the experience of it carries weight, because you are aware that you are experiencing it. This creates a kind of distance, a space between the self and the world, and within that space new feelings can emerge. You notice how one individual reacts to a sudden sound, their body tensing, their movement quick. But even after the sound fades, the tension lingers. They remain alert, watching, waiting. It is no longer just a reaction. It is something that continues, a feeling that stays. You feel how this changes everything, because once feelings persist beyond the moment, they begin to shape how the world is experienced. Across long stretches of time, this ability to carry internal states may have influenced behavior in profound ways. It allows for caution, for anticipation, for reflection. But it also introduces something new, a kind of inner complexity. You walk with the group, your attention shifting between the world outside and the quiet presence within. The sun rises higher, warming your skin, the light steady and calm. But within that calm, the mind is more active than before. You notice how individuals now seem to carry something with them. Not objects, not tools, but a kind of internal state. One person moves more cautiously, even in open space. Another lingers longer near the group, as if seeking closeness. These behaviors feel connected to something unseen, something internal. There is a small moment that stands out. One individual sits alone for a brief time. Their gaze lowered, their body still. They are not engaged with the environment, not interacting with others. They are simply present with themselves. This moment feels significant because it suggests that the mind can now turn inward fully, not just for a moment, but for a sustained experience. You sit nearby, feeling the stillness settle around you. The air is warm, the ground steady beneath you, the sounds of life continuing softly in the distance. And within that calm, you begin to understand the cost of this shift. Awareness brings depth, but it also brings weight. The world is no longer just experienced. It is felt, interpreted, carried. The group continues moving, the rhythm steady but now layered with these internal experiences. You notice how individuals respond not just to the environment, but to their own feelings, a hesitation that comes from within, a movement toward others that feels like a search for comfort. These are quiet changes, but they reshape everything. As the light begins to soften, the group returns once more to the resting place. The fire is rebuilt, its glow steady and warm. You sit beside it, feeling the heat settle into your hands. Around you, the group gathers, and there is a sense now that each person carries their own inner world, not separate from the group, but not entirely shared either. You look around the circle, watching faces lit by the firelight, each one calm, each one quiet, but each one holding something unseen. You listen to the sounds around you, the crackle of fire, the soft rhythm of breathing, the faint movements of bodies settling into rest. And within that calm, you sense the shift settling fully. The mind has become aware of itself, and with that awareness comes depth, feeling, reflection, and a quiet complexity that did not exist before. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the warmth and stillness settle around you. And when you open them again, the fire still burns, the night stretches wide above you, but the world is no longer simple. It is rich, layered, filled with meaning, and the mind now carries that meaning within it. The fire rests low and steady as the morning begins, its glow softer now, almost gentle in the way it lingers. You wake with a quiet awareness that everything you have witnessed has been building towards something, not a sudden change, but a turning. You rise slowly, your movements calm, and follow the group as they begin their day once more. The ground feels familiar beneath your feet, the air steady, the light spreading across the land in soft layers. And yet, nothing feels the same, because now, the way the world is experienced has shifted. You notice it in the smallest details. The way someone pauses before stepping forward, not just to observe but to consider. The way another looks at the horizon, not only seeing distance but holding something within that gaze. The group moves across the land, but their movement carries a new depth, a quiet awareness that stretches beyond the immediate. This is the point where everything begins to change, not visibly, not dramatically, but fundamentally. You walk among them, feeling the difference settle into your body. The air is warm, the sounds of life continuing around you in soft patterns. But within the group, something has taken hold. The mind is no longer just reacting, remembering, or imagining. It is integrating, bringing everything together. Memory, attention, shared knowledge, imagination, emotion, all woven into a single way of experiencing the world. You see it in the way individuals act now. One person gathers food not just for the moment, but with a sense of continuation, as if aware that the need will return. Another adjusts their movement based on both past experience and present feeling, creating a response that feels more complete. There is a fluidity to their actions, a coherence, as if everything they have learned is now working together. Over long periods, this kind of integration would transform how humans lived. It would allow for more complex cooperation, deeper relationships, and eventually the formation of traditions and culture. You feel how that future is beginning here, not yet visible, but present in the way everything connects. The group pauses near a familiar place, a stretch of land where the ground dips slightly. You recognize it now without needing to look closely, and so do they. Their movements slow, their attention shifting not just to what is there, but to what has been there before. There is a continuity now, a thread that runs through each day. You notice how individuals interact with each other, not just reacting, not just responding, but engaging. A person offers space without needing to be prompted. Another shares an object without hesitation. These actions feel natural, as if they arise from a deeper understanding. You feel a quiet sense of recognition. This is the beginning of something that will eventually become social structure. Not rules, not systems, but patterns of behavior that repeat and stabilize over time. The group moves on, the day unfolding in its familiar rhythm. But now, every action feels layered. Every moment carries connections to others, to the past, to the future. You notice how individuals now seem to anticipate not just events, but each other. A movement begins before another has fully acted. A response forms before a sound is completed. This level of connection feels new. It suggests that the group is beginning to function as a cohesive whole, while still maintaining individual awareness. You walk with them, your steps steady, your awareness deep. The sun rises higher, the air warm, the land open and calm, and within that calm, the transformation continues. There is a small moment that stands out. One individual picks up a familiar object, turning it in their hands. They look at it, then at another member of the group, then back again. There is a pause, connection. Then they use the object in a way that reflects both their own experience and what they have seen from others. It is a simple act, but it carries layers of understanding. You feel how this is different from earlier moments, because now actions are informed by multiple sources: self, others, memory, possibility, all at once. This is what changes everything. The mind is no longer fragmented, it is unified, and that unity allows for something entirely new. The group returns once more to the resting place as the day fades into evening. The fire is rebuilt, its glow steady and warm. You sit beside it, feeling the heat settle into your hands. Around you, the group gathers, and the circle feels complete, not in a final sense, but in a formed sense. You look around, watching faces illuminated by the firelight, each one carrying awareness, each one connected. You listen to the sounds around you, the crackle of fire, the soft rhythm of breathing, the faint movement of bodies settling into rest. And within that calm, you sense the truth of what has happened. This quiet shift, this gradual change, it has reshaped everything. The world is no longer just lived in. It is understood, felt, shared, and carried forward. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the warmth and stillness settle around you. And when you open them again, the fire still burns, the night stretches wide above you. But nothing is the same, because the mind has changed, and with it, the path of human history has been set in motion. The night feels quieter than any before it. You sit beside the fire, its glow low and steady, casting soft light across the ground and the familiar shapes around you. The air is calm, almost still, carrying only the faintest sounds of breathing and distant movement. There is a sense that everything has come to rest, not in an ending, but in a kind of completion. You remain there, watching the fire, feeling its warmth gently against your skin. Around you, the group settles into stillness, their bodies relaxed, their presence calm. And now, as you look at them, You see something that was not there at the beginning. Not clearly, not fully, but undeniably. Each person is aware, not just of the world, but of themselves within it. You feel it in the way they sit, the way they move, the way they pause. There is a quiet depth to their presence, a sense that each one carries something unseen, a mind that reflects, a self that experiences. The fire crackles softly, and for a moment, your gaze drifts upward. The sky stretches wide above you, filled with distant points of light, the same stars you have seen before, but now they feel different. Not just something to look at, but something to think about, to wonder about. The group does not speak of them. There are no words yet for what they might mean, but the attention is there, lingering. You lower your gaze again, looking around the circle. These individuals who once moved only by instinct now carry something more. They remember, they imagine, they feel, they recognize themselves and each other. And because of that, everything has changed. Over time, changes like this would ripple outward. Small groups would begin to form traditions, repeating actions not just because they worked, but because they were shared. Knowledge would grow, not only through necessity, but through curiosity. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, this would lead to the first signs of culture. You feel how that future exists quietly within this moment. Not visible, not formed, but present. The fire shifts slightly, a small piece of wood collapsing inward. The light flickers, shadows moving across the ground in soft patterns. You notice how one individual watches the movement of the flames, their gaze steady, almost thoughtful. Another sits nearby, their posture relaxed, their presence calm. Each person exists within themselves, and yet they remain connected. This balance feels important, because it allows for both individuality and unity. It allows for growth, for change, for the building of something larger than any one person. You sit there, letting the moment settle into you. The warmth, the quiet, the sense of something complete. And you begin to understand what has happened. It was not a single event, not a sudden transformation. It was a gradual shift, a layering of small changes. Attention, memory, connection, imagination, emotion, awareness, each one building upon the last, until the mind became something new, something capable of shaping the world in ways that had never been possible before. You feel a quiet sense of awe in that realization. Not overwhelming, just steady, like the fire beside you, because this is the moment where human history truly begins to unfold. Not with tools, not with fire, but with awareness, the ability to think, to feel, to know that you are here. The group settles further into rest, the night deepening around you. The fire burns lower, its glow softer, its warmth fading gently. You lean back slightly, your body relaxing, your senses softening. The sounds around you grow quieter. The rhythm of breathing slows. The air cools, and the world feels at peace. You take one last look at the scene, the fire, the group, the vast sky above, and you realize that this moment, quiet as it is, holds the beginning of everything that will follow. Every story, every idea, every connection. It all grows from here, from this subtle shift in the human mind. The fire dims further, its light now just a gentle glow against the darkness. The stars remain steady and distant, and you feel yourself settling into the stillness. The journey has been long, but it has led you here, to this quiet understanding, this peaceful moment. You close your eyes, letting the warmth fade, the sounds soften, the world drift gently into silence, and as everything settles, the night wraps around you like a calm, steady breath, a reminder that even the greatest changes can begin in the quietest ways. Now, let the fire dim a little more and allow the scene to soften. The shapes around you begin to blur gently, the edges of the world fading into shadow. The warmth that once felt strong now becomes subtle, like a memory held in the body. You can still hear the quiet rhythm of breath, steady and calm, like waves that never rush. The air cools just enough to feel comforting, wrapping around you without weight. Above, the sky stretches endlessly. The stars no longer sharp points, but soft glimmers in the distance. Nothing demands your attention now. Nothing pulls you forward. There is only this moment, still, calm, complete. The fire gives one last gentle flicker, then settles into a quiet glow, barely visible against the night, and you feel yourself drifting with it. The thoughts that once moved begin to slow, then soften, then fade, leaving only a quiet sense of presence, of rest, of peace. The world grows quieter still, until even the smallest sounds seem to dissolve into the night. And in that quiet, you remain, calm, warm, at ease, as if the entire journey is settled into a single, gentle breath. And slowly, without effort, the night carries you into rest, sweet dreams,